the rule for tonight. This is going to be a fire hose of information. Don't try to decide what we're going to do as the project. Just try to understand the options, and don't focus on the money either. Not yet. Pretend like it's Monopoly money for the moment. Is that fair?
Okay.
So, I mean, we're going to come in.
We got one guy telling me, don't worry about the money, and the other guy telling me, this is going to be murder. Good. We're off to a great start here.
We're doing great, aren't we? Well, we're just trying to set expectations reasonably.
Yeah.
Because all you did was pay me for diagnosis. So, diagnosis and planning. So I don't have any skin in the game for the rest of it. But the next meeting that we have, or maybe 2 meetings out. So another thing, there is so much here that it may be more than you want to absorb tonight. And if so, we'll schedule a second meeting and finish up. I'm going to try and watch you guys' eyes to make sure that we're not just totally overwhelming you.
Okay.
And if for some reason you're just like, this is too much, can we do another meeting? Safe word is pineapple, okay? Is that fair? I mean that in a humorous way mostly. But I think you'll be fine. But the work scope is so long that I'm probably not going to go through the last few items. But we'll see how we get there.
Are these items prioritized in any sense?
Yes. Yeah, it's very much prioritized. So it's going to be like a newspaper article where you can leave off the last couple paragraphs and no one's going to know.
Okay.
So that's how it's built. It's built with all of the important stuff up front.
Okay. Can I go first?
Yeah, please.
I bet you hate that, don't you? Number 1 there, reduced CO coming out of our boiler.
Yes.
That's done.
Oh, what happened?
We had our HVAC guy come over and took the boiler apart, and I can't tell you exactly what was going on, but there was some housing that wasn't sealed properly, and he packed it full of some cement or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but he said something was allowing exhaust to escape, and he fixed it. And then you know that I have this low-level CO monitor now, and we're just at 0 all the time now.
Yes. Oh, thank goodness.
We did not want to replace that thing. Those cast iron boilers are 50-year machines. We didn't want to replace it. It was way down on the list. So if we don't have to deal with it, I'm tickled.
Yeah.
So how much was it to fix it?
About $150.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you'll see it real early in the work scope.
This is me setting expectations now.
Yeah, I wish that it was going to continue at $150. It would be nice if that was the case, but by the way, budget that we had talked about, which I have in here somewhere, but we might as well touch on it since we're talking numbers, was $200 to $300 a month, which works out to be like $30,000 to $50,000. Does that all sound familiar?
Yeah.
So that was the assumption we were working from.
And I find the total dollar units easier to work with. If it's okay with you, we can skip the monthly units. This
is all capital that you're going to see on this sheet here, so you're good to go.
Good.
It's just oftentimes easier for people to begin to wrap their head around and to get the budget above $10,000 because they always have to be above $10,000 on these projects. And then your house is going to be a good bit more still, I'm afraid. 2 HVAC systems and a complicated attic, that's not inexpensive.
Well, you guys were already there, so.
Mm-hmm. What, say that again?
They're already there.
Yeah, they got it. So, okay. Caveat on the modeling. Brick homes are a weakness of all energy models, or at least everyone that I know of, because they have weird thermal mass properties. I mean, your house is physically extremely heavy compared to my wood-framed house. So it absorbs heat like a big flywheel, and then it takes quite a while to throw that heat off. And the models don't do crazy well for that. So the energy projections may or may not be accurate coming out of this. We aim for the energy projections coming out of the models to be plus or minus 15% of reality, which is basically weather differences up and down.
Okay. I'm still not exactly sure what we're projecting.
I'll show you in a minute. But I want to caveat that we do our very best to make an accurate model, but there are holes in the modeling software, and brick houses tend to go through them.
Got it.
Also, houses with multiple HVAC systems tend to hit a weakness in the model.
Okay.
So you have two things there. We do trust the load calculations that came out of this, which is how much it takes to heat and cool the house, because we have set you up so that if you wanted to, you could disconnect the gas meter to your house and heat it with heat pumps. So
that's another reason we're thrilled that your boiler's working, because this may be a multi-phase thing, and it gives us a whole lot more confidence in the second phase. If you decided you want to get rid of your meter, we see what's going on after a year or so of the first phase.
Yeah, we let the house run, and we watch how it works. And if it comes in as the model goes, and you want to disconnect, you can. It makes us happy that that's the case. For now, the only HVAC system we're recommending replacing is actually the one for the second and third floors. That's what fits in the budget. But we'll get to that. Okay, so I apologize that there are two columns here, which makes it confusing, but let's touch on the goals column here and just make sure that everything is still basically the same. So yay, carbon monoxide is taken care of. I'm so tickled to hear that. Figuring out what on earth you're going to replace the HVAC with was kind of the main reason you guys called, right?
More or less.
There's plenty here, but the attic system is creating a ton of dust, and we discovered that on that first visit that it has an electronic air filter that doesn't look like it's working. And then also, you remember the return duct that just poked right through the wall into where the HVAC is up there?
Yep.
Little peak. That is not good, because you're paying to heat and cool that little attic, but also you're pulling air directly from that attic, which means the dust in the attic you're ending up breathing. So not ideal. So basically, if we get a decent filter in there, it's a good start. But but you're still pulling funny. Like the duct system for that system, I just didn't like. Ted was like, "Well, but we could probably keep this, this, and this." I'm like, "I really don't want to keep this, this, and this if we don't have to," because there are a bunch of things I didn't like about it.
Did Ted visit our house?
No, but he saw all the photos,
Okay.
and we argued like Arabs and Jews over what to do to your house. We had quite a discussion yesterday. Normally we do them within an hour and a half or 2 hours. We go through the models, and yours was 3.5, and we were both exhausted yesterday. So it worked as hard. And then I spent basically all of today trying to get this package so that hopefully I can explain it to you quickly and well, or at least relatively quickly. Anyway, this was a fun challenge. I like a challenge.
It's a cool house.
Yeah, I love your
Cool
house. It's a sweet house. So lower humidity in summer, both for comfort and so that you aren't worried about the woodwork in the house, correct?
Yep.
You'd like to be able to use the third floor more,
Yes.
have it be comfortable. Reduce water usage, which I didn't find any major opportunities in your house. So do you guys water your lawn? I didn't ask.
Occasionally,
Okay. Well, occasionally is fine.
we go in spurts. We'll water it for a month and think we're gonna have great grass, and then our dogs will trash it, and we'll just ignore it for the rest of the season, stuff like that.
I love your dogs. They were so fraidy cat for me. It was kind of wild. I was like, I wonder what's going to happen here. And they just cowered on the other side. And like, I like dogs. I don't know why you guys are cowering.
They'll get to know you.
Yeah, they didn't get in my way, so that was the key part. But they didn't bark their heads off. All right, reducing ice damming and the potential problems that can come from that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I interrupt here for a sec?
Absolutely not. What do you have in mind, Ted?
I was wondering where the ice dams are.
Rear of the house, right?
Do you have a specific area? Is it like where the ductwork is? Is it associated with where the ductwork goes along the roof?
It's the way that the roof was. So it seems like there was an added peak where the HVAC is in the third floor, and so they created basically this valley that gets too much water, and so then it just flows over the gutters.
Yeah, I remember the rear of the house also faces south, Ted, which doesn't help for solar.
Yeah.
Exposure. All right, reducing moisture in dungeon. You guys gave a 4 out of 10. I think that's actually going to shift the house quite a bit if we deal with that.
Shift the house. What do you mean?
I think the basement won't feel damp substantially anymore if we can get that dealt with. Is that
if we can reduce moisture in the dungeon?
Yep.
So you would put a higher priority on that than 4 out of 10.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not going to be terribly expensive to remediate anyway, so maybe it could stay a 4 out of 10 and still get dealt with because it's not like tens of thousands of dollars.
Got it. I'd be happy with that. That place kind of gives me the creeps.
As well it should, although I love the poster that you have on there, even if Cheryl doesn't. We're going to go through pictures next, so everybody will get to see those briefly. All right, Chris, you want to make it so that your skin isn't quite so dry.
Yeah.
And we didn't put something on this, but one of the reasons you had originally called me to was potential electrification, right?
I wouldn't say that's true. I mean, I'd say we're interested in a project that would make our house greener, a project that would make our house more energy efficient, more comfortable. So that kind of is correlated with reduced fossil fuel usage. But I don't think you should put us in the electrify everything camp just yet.
Okay, that is fine. That's I didn't have it in there, and I couldn't remember from the discussion how high it was. So actually, I will take that out of there because I kind of added that one.
Put us in the column of sort of interested in being educated more.
Okay. Well, that'll happen tonight. So we'll up here, looking at here, I can zoom in on this more so it's easier for you guys to read. I know it pops up smaller on your screen.
We can read it just fine.
Okay. So the gas usage on the house, while it's high, it actually isn't that bad for a house that size. And that's likely because the house is relatively tight. And oftentimes hot water systems use less energy than you might expect. They tend not to drive stack effect quite as much as forced air. Anyway, it wasn't crazy usage there. It's high for what we usually see, but it's a big brick house, so you expect somewhat higher usage. The electric usage is a little bit on the high side. Like I might have expected for you to, it'd be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 lower, but not crazy. And then from your bills, we extracted the costs. So $14 a month plus 60 cents a therm for the gas, and then $10 a month for meter fee for the electric, and 13 cents for electricity. So I calculated that off your bills, and that's what went into the energy model.
Okay.
We don't do anything fancy. Well, the model doesn't really let you. You just put in today's cost or one cost, and it just uses that running all the way out. So it basically assumes the same utility cost moving forward. Which is,
Now, I'm going to say something here.
sure.
For full electrification, to be sort of at parity with natural gas, you generally need the therm cost to be about 10 times the kilowatt cost. 8 to 10 times. So if you guys ever are considering electrification, at your current delta, it would not be a financial gain to make that call, and it might actually be a financial penalty. Now, that said, hybrid solutions where you're running heat pumps at the warmer temperatures do have a tendency to pay, because the heat pumps end up gaining efficiency at warmer temperatures. So what you may end up finding is you use your boiler less, but it carries you through the colder temperatures. So 6 or 7 times you're okay in a hybrid solution, and that's sort of where, you know.
So stop me if I'm getting ahead of us, but heat pump hybrid, this means that it uses partially gas fuel and partially electrical fuel?
Well,
correct?
you got a boiler that uses gas.
Oh, okay. And so a heat pump up on the 3rd floor, that would be purely electric, correct?
Yes, that's what we're leaning towards here.
That would be purely electric.
One of the main reasons for that is because the unit that we like is really, really good at dehumidification. But it only has a special dehumidification feature if you do heat pump only.
Okay.
So that's why we're leaning that direction for the attic system. You don't have to do it that way, but it will allow you to do almost unbelievable dehumidification with that particular setup. That is unique to the unit that we're recommending, and the one that is a step down from the one that we're recommending. And those are the only two on the market.
And the way that your house is set up, and the way that we're recommending these improvements for your house, the load on the 3rd floor, which is the only area that isn't served by the boiler, you're probably not going to see your total energy bill probably is not going to go up. Unfortunately, with multiple systems, it's a hard model.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tough to. The model doesn't deal well. You can't tell it which system to run harder very easily. You put one in primary and one in secondary, and it gets complicated really fast.
We're going to make your house a lot more comfortable and a lot more controllable, but it's unlikely that your energy bill goes down meaningfully.
Yep.
That's kind of within our expectations here, so
Okay.
we don't have to really dwell on that so much. I appreciate all the info here, but reducing our electricity bill or our energy bill, that is not priority 1 here.
Great.
And that
Great.
makes sense too, because you're not truly heating the 3rd floor right now. So if you're able to heat the 3rd floor for the same cost, you're still gaining something.
Yeah, that's true. When you talk about full electrification, tell me how that involves solar and batteries.
Good question. That is like the last thing that I had on here, but that's perfect to ask now. So the biggest thing is that the batteries are actually more important than the solar in our line of thinking. You happen to have pretty good solar exposure for the rear roof, but there's not a lot of roof back there. That added peak that Cheryl, you were mentioning, will shade that back section enough that you can probably only get a 3 to 5 kW system, so it'll make 3 to 5,000 kilowatt hours a year on that. But the battery, what that can do, at least, and it doesn't matter until we get to where we have time of use pricing, where you pay more for some times of the day. But when there's time of use pricing, it could store energy when energy is cheap and then put it out when it's needed.
So you're doing arbitrage.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. I'm sort of interested in the battery also for resilience issues.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't really want to ever go. Sometimes I would like to have be insured against a long power outage, and I don't want to go buy a diesel generator. And so having solar and a battery, that's an additional benefit that I would value as well.
Yep. Now, it won't necessarily give you a huge. Well, it depends. So depends on how much usage there is. The really nice thing about a battery is you can pull a huge amount of energy. So if you need 30,000 watts, no problem, it'll give it to you. It won't give it to you for long.
Yeah.
It'll drain the battery quickly, but it'll give it to you. Where a generator isn't necessarily a generator is going to struggle to match what the house needs as it goes up and down. A battery can match it instantly and easily, so it's good for that. But a battery may only be good for, say, 4 to 12 hours of backup, where a generator goes indefinitely. So pros and cons to everything.
Got it. And when you said, what did you say? That it'll generate how many kilowatt hours per year?
So when you look at it, so a 1,000-watt system, it will make at least 1,000 kilowatt hours a year. I think in our so I'm not super up to speed on the solar, but Ted, what is it like? It'll make 13 or 1,400 watts, or 13 or 1,400 kilowatt hours for every.
All of that has to be calculated based on your exposure and the inverter you choose. And there's so many.
Yeah, I'm sort of vaguely familiar with that stuff. I didn't mean to get us off track there.
Ask questions as we go.
Okay.
If I'm going to get to it soon, I'll just say I'll get to it soon. That I wasn't necessarily even planning to talk about tonight, because that was one of the last things on the list. So I'm glad you.
Okay. Anyway, that's helpful to just know we're in the what full electrification means here, and sort of I feel like I'm more in the ballpark now. So let's continue with your plan here.
Okay. The energy use of your house was a little bit above average per square foot, but not hugely, which was interesting that it wasn't higher than that. For a house that age, I'd expect you to be on the high side, and you were a little above average. The basement was crazy tight. I'm lucky to get basements that tight post-project, and your 19 teens house has that, probably because of that poured concrete foundation. And then most of the leakage when we did the blower door testing was on the third. So that is where, in my eyes, most of the opportunity is in your house, and in Ted's eyes too. I was pretty freaked out about your carbon monoxide, and I'm so glad to hear that you got that tackled. So the water heater was running kind of middle of the road. 20. Above 25, we're supposed to recommend the cleaning. Above 100, we're supposed to ask you to vacate the house, and then the dumb boiler's running at 600. But at least it was blowing it out of the house, which is the only reason I wasn't totally wigged out. But the water heater, a number like this tells me that likely it's approaching end of life, but it's not necessarily there yet. So it could be, say, anywhere between 6 months and 5 years left of it. You don't.
We have a plan for that, so.
It's okay. So it's a little higher than I'd like, but it's not bad. I tested for moisture, and we'll touch on this in pictures here. The dungeon walls were utterly soaked. In fact, they were dripping as I was testing them. this made me nervous, but Ted was talking to me about it. The water temps. I left the proper tool at home when I was measuring it, but I could get a pretty good idea of where the water temps were, and they were on the cool side. That probably is thanks to what's called the outdoor reset, which is it's just a thermostat that goes outside, and when the outdoor temperature gets high, it turns the boiler temperature down automatically. So I'd need to test it again on a properly.
Your rooms, you don't have problems with temperature swings in any of your rooms, do you?
You mean for water?
Yeah.
boiler.
Like
The radiators don't overheat the rooms, and then swing down and then swing up.
no.
No, so you probably have an outdoor reset. It's running cooler hot water on milder days and hotter hot water on colder days to the radiators
Okay.
to sort of match the load.
Got it.
And so that's a nice feature to have on that boiler, particularly with radiators, because if you don't have it, then in mild weather the boiler comes on and overheats the house and shuts off, and you get these swings.
No, it's we have a programmed thermostat, and so we generate intentional swings over the between night and then when we're not here. But on the weekends we have it at 64 all the time in cold weather, and it's really consistent.
Okay.
And it actually feels good, Ted. Their house at 60 was not bad when I was there.
Wow. Yeah. So this is the radiators. Yeah, and the radiant mass.
Yeah, they're doing a good job. Radiators matched with a brick house are a really good match, actually.
Nice, man. That's a nice.
So, okay.
One thing that you would have a real hard time talking us out of is the radiated heat from on the second and third floor here. Going up all electrification, is that consistent with having radiators?
Not yet. Not yet. That's another reason we would go slowly into this.
Yeah. So all electrification means forced air. Is that right?
That's where it is right now. There's new quote-unquote boilers coming out that use carbon dioxide. They're air to water, so they use the heat from the outside air to warm up water, but they're very small in capacity just yet. Probably in the next 3 to 5 years they'll get there, but they're not there yet.
That's why we wanted your boiler to be good.
Yeah.
We don't want to recommend that you have to change it.
Yeah. We think if we do one HVAC system in your house, it'll probably solve pretty much all the issues that you have. So, high likelihood. Okay. I'm going to pull this picture up for everybody else as much as you. You guys know what your house looks like. But I want to start, we're going to touch on energy bills, but we're going to talk about where insulation and air sealing needs to happen, and then where there's moisture issues. And then after that, we're going to switch over to HVAC. Does that sound fair?
Yep.
Okay. So that's what I have in mind here.
One last thing about HVAC, just to set expectations here. My expectation is also that the air conditioner, the cooling thing in the basement needs to be replaced as well, not just the one on the third floor.
And we have a recommendation for that, but it didn't fit the budget.
Yeah, I think that thing's pretty old. I think it's just as old as the one upstairs, like 25 years plus.
It's older. That one might be 35 or 40.
Yeah.
That's an old unit. It's still functioning though, right?
Yeah, but it's going to have to be replaced sooner or later, probably sooner. So that's sort of in our expectations here.
Yep. So there's a specification for it.
Okay.
So we went well beyond what fit in the budget. Well beyond. It's more money than you guys have any interest in spending, which is why I said monopoly. But we discussed that. It's like going to the Chevy dealership and, we're going to drive the Corvette, even though we're going home in the four-door. Although after I said that, they've pretty much decided they're going to stop making four-doors, so I'm going to have to change it. Anyway, So the one part that that there isn't a great way to address on the third floor is the music room up front. Or was it the music room, or what do you guys call
Entertainment room.
it? Entertainment room? Yep. So that the ceiling in there, the only way to deal with that well is either to pull the drywall and spray foam it, or pull the roof and spray foam it. So there isn't a good, easy way. There's insulation in there now, so that's probably just not going to get upgraded as part of this process, unless you guys want to tear it apart.
Okay.
It's up to you, but
It's not something that we would recommend.
yeah, it's not high on our list. If we deal with the rest of the third floor, I think we're good to go. The odds are high that we'll totally get
I think you're going to be really happy with the outcome without addressing that.
To address it would be, would the motive would be what? Just more energy efficiency?
comfort, because that room may still be a mild struggle.
Okay.
It's not going to have the same R value, and it's going to be somewhat leaky still. But it's only going to be the ceiling up here, and then the rest of it's going to be in good shape.
Okay.
It's something that if you ever go to replace the roof, you would consider addressing at that time, and you would take a look at addressing at that time.
We just did that 2 years ago.
When you say replace the roof, do you mean replace the shingles, or we just had a new roof 2 years ago?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So you're 30 years away from looking at that, unless after doing all this work, you find that room to be unbearably uncomfortable for some reason, which we think the likelihood is very, very low.
Okay, got it.
not fair. We think in likelihoods, not absolutes, because it's always complicated, but your house in particular is extra complicated to predict.
We think in probabilities too, so we're on the same page here.
Can I just say I saw this and I'm like, I love you people. I'm sure it was bought on a whim, but it really cracked me up sitting on the basement.
You should check them out next time you're in Pittsburgh, Nate. It's a great little brew pub.
I'm totally in. I'll go there with my wife and kid. All right. Blower door on your house was basically 5,000, 4,900, 5,000. Remember, I was expecting it to be more like 10. I was like, oh, holy cow, your house is actually kind of tight. So it's not tight, but it's surprisingly tight for its size and age.
And that has to do probably with the port basement.
Yep.
Because usually you would get half of the leakage from the attic and half of the leakage from the basement, and so the basement has none basically. So you still have the attic problem, but which also helps indicate why you have a draft problem with your boiler and possibly your hot water heater, because there's any stack effect in the house is fighting against the stack that those two naturally drafted pieces of equipment are trying to get fed with.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm sorry, I'm going technical, but your house is really.
I read the book. I get the stack effect.
But yeah, the water heater, by the way, drafted fine, which surprised the hell out of me. And I tried it with the dryer on, which usually will make one backdraft if it's on the edge, and then I kicked the boiler on as well, and it's still drafted.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the water heater doesn't have to be replaced.
Okay.
But if you're doing a bunch of HVAC work, it probably makes sense to just do it this round while you're dealing with everything. Because there's going to be some wiring and other stuff that has to happen. It might as well just get done all at once. But if you're like, boy, we got to cut something out of the budget, the water heater goes. That's
But run the wires for a heat pump water heater, even if you don't replace the water heater, so that later when you do have to replace it, the wiring's all ready.
Okay. So just when we talk about water heater, we're talking about water heater for bathing and
For your hot water.
Yep, precisely.
Whereas when we're talking about the hot water for the radiators, we're talking that's 5 minutes ago we were using the same language, water heater, and it turned out we were talking about the boiler.
Yeah, sorry. So let's call the boiler hydronics because that's technically what it is. That's
Okay,
doing with hot water. And then we can call this domestic hot water.
okay, got it.
Sorry, yeah, we don't normally have that confusion point, but here you have a hot water house in two different ways.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Great question, and keep asking. Don't let us just go. All right, so energy bills. Big thing I was looking at. This is the total here. So 197,000 cubic feet of gas. And something to note, because this was the cold snap, and
Yeah.
cold snaps and brick houses don't play well together because you get that nice thermal flywheel going, but if it stays cold for a number of days, it stops the flywheel and starts to turn it backwards. And then they use a crap ton of energy trying to get them up to speed again. So that's what you see here. Is that it's wild how tall that is compared to the other ones.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's the kind of thing that we look at these and just see. Your electric is a little bit on the high side, in the 10 to 11,000 range. But you can see that it's heavily from air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And that should all get considerably better, both from the better efficiency of the unit and the fact that we're going to reduce how much it takes to cool the house substantially by tackling the third floor. But it's good to see this. But your typical usage is definitely on the high side, being like 700 or 800. So there was one thing that I had in here. There weren't a lot that screamed at me. But like the chest freezer in the basement, I always take a look to see how much is in things to see if it's easy to stop using one. And you might consider turning one of them off when you don't need it. You know, if it's possible to move things over. Not a huge deal. It's going to save you like $50 a year. So whatever. All right, here's my sketch of the third floor. This is the one that was really hard. So here's the back bedroom back here, if this makes sense.
Yep.
And there's a couple of weird spots in this house where we probably need to cut access to get into. So I'll show you a picture of this in a little bit. Well, you already know where it is, but there's this little tiny rear roof in the back. And it's going to be leaky along this back wall. So we don't absolutely have to get in there to deal with that, but it would be my strong leaning to deal with it because there's probably some other drywall work that we're going to need to tackle while we're doing this. And thankfully, because you guys don't use the third floor, if we make a bit of a mess up there for a few days, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
Okay. I'm confused about what the problem there is.
Oh, sure.
When you talk about roof, are you talking about the roof that's over top of the little kitchen dormer? No.
Let's see here. No. Did I pull them out of order? Here we go. So this is that back wall.
Right.
Of that room. And then looking through that window, it's tough to see. It's this little baby roof that sticks out down here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It leaks like crazy right there, more than likely. It's one of those things that makes or breaks projects, even though it sucks to get to.
We've fixed these before with really, really good outcome.
So when you say leaks, you're talking about water?
No, air.
Leak. So this is stack effect is likely coming through this here.
Okay.
So we're going to spray foam the entire roof deck, and it just so happens that there's a lousy 18 inches of roof deck right here, and then the top of this wall that we want to hit. It's a sucky thing to have to hit, but these are the little details that it'll take you from 70% odds to 80% odds with this one thing.
Okay.
And to get to that, we need to pull this bed away and then probably cut an 18-inch tall hole all the way across here.
Yeah.
We can spray foam it.
Okay.
So now we just tore into the room. So while we're tearing into the room, and I'll come back to it in a little bit, but if we spray foam the roof deck, so the HVAC is sitting right above here,
Right,
and the ductwork is coming down through the ceiling,
right,
but we're going to eat up 4 inches of space where that duct is going, and the duct needs 6 inches, and it only has 5.5 right now. So ideally, we don't have to. We can skip foaming those runs, but
This is where Nate and I were like,
we argue.
we went back and forth, and it comes down to probably not that much additional expense to you to do it his way, and a fair amount of additional confidence, particularly given you have ice.
Yeah.
So moving the ductwork away from that roof deck is going to significantly reduce the amount of heat that gets delivered to that roof where that ductwork is, adjacent to the ductwork.
Yeah, and then heat on the roof melts the snow on it on the roof, and then turns into icicles.
right.
So what we would do is we need to soften out. It might be easier to there's the corner over here where the slope ceiling starts coming down. We would soften that down, and that's been done in a bunch of places upstairs already. I'm skipping ahead here.
The giant room. There's one, yeah.
Yeah. So there's like this is the return coming down in that bedroom.
Yeah.
And then it pops out the wall, if memory serves, right on the other side of that wall.
Right.
And
there's a good example.
This is basically what it would end up looking like. What we need to do, we need to buy ourselves another 6 inches to run ductwork.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the two alternatives here are.
Basically,
I'm not sure how they're related to the spray foaming.
So you have this much room between your on the slope ceilings. You have this much room between your drywall and your roof.
Right.
And if we insulate 4 inches of that roof, you have this much.
Right.
And once you have this much, you won't have room for the duct. So you'll need to bring the drywall down when we put the ductwork back.
Got it. And so the issue is to spray foam or not to spray foam.
Yeah. The issue is to spray foam around the ductwork as it exists now, and have a whole lot less insulation in that cavity, or pull the ductwork out, spray foam the way that we would spray foam the other cavities, which is 3 to 4 inches, and then put ductwork back, but now you can't put the ductwork back.
Yeah, we only have 1.5 inches of space, and we need 6.
Put it somewhere else.
You put what somewhere else?
The ductwork.
Okay.
That's what they're saying. You'd have to add in
Is it true that in all of these scenarios the ductwork's being replaced?
That is the strong recommendation. You don't have to, but I there is nothing that I actually like about the current duct system.
Well, so the thing that went back and forth is I want half of it replaced, and Nate wants more than half of it replaced.
I'm very uneasy with the ductwork as well, but that's kind of, I don't know.
I mean, it's a mess in the attic where you're using an outdoor attic space as an open plenum, which is absolutely, from an energy and a comfort perspective, it's a miserable approach. So it's no surprise that you have comfort issues.
Flex duct is notorious for not flowing very well. It creates a lot of back pressure, and the system we're recommending is a high-end system, and the high-end systems don't like lots of pressure to work against, or they break early. So you want to let them breathe as easily as possible. and all kinds of goodness comes out of that. The comfort improves, the energy use improves, the efficiency improves. All kinds of good things happen when the duct system works well.
Okay.
And we don't recommend replacing duct systems hardly ever, but your number came up.
At least everything that's in that attic should be replaced. Whether or not the branches going down get replaced or not would probably be a discussion to have when with whoever you have do the duct design.
Yep, and we'll get to that. The duct design is specifying exactly what size ducts need to be run to what rooms. And we offer that service, but you don't have to use us for that. But highly, highly recommended that you make sure that's done for this system, and it's not just guessed at, because rule of thumb usually doesn't work very well.
You don't want them designing the ductwork the day they roll up to your house to install the equipment. It seems like maybe that's what happened with this system that's there.
Yeah, they just stuck in whatever they could get to fit that was at the supply yard, and that's not the way to do duct systems well.
None of this surprises me, and this is all sort of within my expectations. I go up into that attic twice a year to adjust the duct that puts the air into our bedroom, because we like to have it in the summertime for the air conditioning, but we hate having the forced air in the wintertime. Yep. And every time I go up into that attic and start fucking around with those ducts that are kind of coming apart and there's insulation everywhere, it just I leave there very unhappy. So you're not going to take I'm not going to take a lot of convincing. I can't speak about my wife here, but
Cheryl, what do you think?
I'm open to replacing them. I don't like those flexible seals.
Good deal. Okay. So the back to the map here. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yep.
So the ducts are coming through primarily through this area into this knee wall attic. So there's an attic here that there's no way to get into presently. So
Right.
One of the things we need to do is punch a hatch in there. Same with this one over here. There's also a small attic that runs over here that I can't remember if there's a good way to get into or not. That's over the bathroom. So we have
over
to-
top
over the bathroom on the third floor.
on top of the bathroom.
Yes.
Oh,
You can go in. I think you can go in through the closet and probably get up there, but it's not anything we've done.
okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, actually, you might be able to get. I think you can get there through here. Come to think of it.
Yeah.
But we need to gain access somehow.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of ducts running through there because there's a couple of ducts that come down right here.
Okay.
Into this attic. So we have to get access to everything. So we need to get into here. We need to get into here. We need to get into the back here of the bedroom. And then the other pain in the neck thing where I'm just like, I don't want to do this, but we're probably going to need to do it anyway. The slope ceiling over the stairs right here.
Yeah.
We really want to spray foam that. It's dangerous to mix spray foam and cellulose, or moisture failures are likely. In fact, we tried it with the okay of a client a couple years ago, and 2 years later, his ceiling is about to fall down. It's like, oh, all right, so we can't do that. He had a slate roof, which theoretically breathes, so I thought that the moisture would find a way out. But basically, we should really take this ceiling down to spray foam. And that's the only, it's the only.
Invasive to your second floor.
Yeah, it's invasive to the second floor, and it's the only thing outside of this room I think we have to do. I think all the other work's going to be in this room.
Could you say the bit about invasive to the second floor again? I didn't understand that.
Well, so when we drop the ceiling here, it's halfway down to the second floor.
I see.
So we're going to make a mess somewhat in your actual living space. So we think a lot about invasiveness and try and minimize it during design, but I didn't know a way around this one.
Yeah, so that your life doesn't really have to be hampered while you're doing this work. As little impact on you as possible.
Okay, we're not terribly fussy about stuff like that, so, we care about it, but it's not a big deal.
It's all
Nice to hear.
Yeah, they've spent a lot of time in Canada, so they're nice, eh?
Well, also those 2 bedrooms, the kids don't live here anymore. Well, the one, she's here a bit, but she can sleep in a different room. It's not a big deal.
Just making sure we want to have your expectations too.
But I still don't get where it is. Is it because it's, so we have the dormer on the, so when you say the stairs, there's a dormer there with the window. Is it part way across?
That ceiling.
Oh,
Yeah,
that.
it's ceiling right here.
Okay.
It always annoys me when I'm designing one of these. I'm like, this part isn't pretty, because this will need to get torn down and then drywall put back up, which means we're going to screw up the paint on this wall. So it creates more work than I would like.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, though, as I left your house that day, my head was spinning. So we should look at that again and make sure that it's required, because it may not be, but I want to set the expectation that it is.
We try to set this up so that it's not overwhelming, not only for you, but for us. And this house is complicated. And you're a couple hours away. So unfortunately, it's suboptimal as far as, oh my God, that's a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, I left and I didn't have my head 100% around your house. I'm like, all right, I got my measurements, I've got my pictures, I'll be able to figure it out. This is the one question mark in my mind I don't have totally figured out.
The reason to do that would be for water, moisture, or would be for comfort and energy efficiency, or both.
Yes, all around. But what we find is if we leave this empty, or if we fill it with blown insulation, and then we spray foam from this line up, the moisture gets stuck in this space. It gets stuck right up at the top, and this is going to crack, and then it likely fall over time.
I see.
Because above it's going to get foamed, and so this will be not insulated, and it'll be a pathway for vapor.
I get it.
Vapor will be attracted to that cold surface, and we're not sure what would happen. I mean, you could opt out of that part, and then wait and see. That would be up to you.
Yeah.
Got it.
So part of that, I think, is a dormer. Is there a way to go in from the outside?
Well, you think it's not a shed dormer, the same as that roof?
It's a pointy over the window.
Oh, even though it's sloped here. Well, that's why Nate's saying he'd like to better understand it.
Yeah.
Because maybe there is a way in.
I've got a question mark. That's hard to see from the ground too, and I probably wasn't looking specifically for that one feature because the house is so stinking tall there.
And close to the neighbor.
Yeah, there's hardly any room between the neighbor and us on that side.
I only know because I've hung out of that window looking at the gutters because our neighbors complaining about eating into their bathroom. So,
if there's a way to get into there, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I prefer not to pull the ceiling if we can avoid it.
Okay.
So there were a couple of things so we do our best to get the work scope somewhere close to where it needs to be, but we're not total savants here. So there's always going to be some question marks that you figure out on the next visit, if that makes sense.
Understood.
It's an iterative process. So, okay, let's see here. Just making sure, so this is all knee wall attic around here. So there's a hatch that's pretty close to like the loft stairs are right here.
Yeah.
And then there's a little hatch here, and then there's a little hatch in the closet of the bedroom.
Right.
So these look like, I didn't crawl all the way back, but it looks like it connects all the way around.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or it's close in here. Like I couldn't tell there was junk in the way here. When we clean out the attic, it may be possible to get through there, or it may not.
I don't think it is, because there's a window in the bathroom.
Yes, but you can actually slide underneath the window.
Yeah, if there's a roof under the window.
Pretty sure.
There's a roof under the window. No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, maybe I screwed up a dimension. All right,
But I don't.
either way, all the stuff that's going to get spray foamed is this knee wall, this knee wall.
It's the dormer like on the other side, I believe. So the guys, these guys were up on scaffolding and they were right beside the house doing the window.
So you may need a crawl space in that lower part on the left. May need an access. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we can get to all this from the hatch here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you can get to it. You just can't. It's not continuous as far as I know, unless you're mouse.
I have been wrong before, Cheryl. It won't be the first time. It's not a bit. It doesn't really affect the design of the project, regardless.
Oh, so that bathroom might be bigger than it's.
Yeah.
Than
Yeah,
there.
so I have some kind of measurement here is wrong. Let's see. So then we also need to foam this attic over here, so it's the roof deck when we climb into here,
Mhm.
and then over here, and then along the whole back.
So how do you get into that one?
This one you can't right now. You got to punch a hatch.
Yeah. Okay.
So this needs a hatch, and this needs a hatch.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how to get up here, but we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
The main things I wanted to figure out at your house was I needed to understand what the dimensions were upstairs, so that I could figure out how many square feet of roof deck there was to foam, and also just figure out how the heck are we actually going to insulate all this.
Right.
And then I was really worried about your carbon monoxide in the basement, so I needed to do combustion safety testing. And those two things consumed most of my time when I was at your house. So there were more tests I would like to do, but I needed to go home. And those tests can be done later. They don't make or break. Like I wanted to understand how much pressure was in the duct systems, but it doesn't really matter because we're probably going to replace them. So what the system is doing now doesn't really matter. Like I said, I found the main things I wanted to figure out, which is what the heck are we going to do to the third floor, and what's going on with combustion in the basement. Okay, but just so you know, it's basically like a big circle of spray foam, but we're not going to do this room.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see here. Well, there we go. So there's that room. We're not going to spray foam this.
Okay.
Unless you want to pull the ceiling down and go nuts. But it breaks budget, and like Ted and I mentioned earlier, it just isn't that high on our list.
I
Understood.
think you'd be really happy if you do all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Understood and agreed.
Okay, keep going, Nate.
Sounds good. So here's the rear attic. This is when you pop through the closet in the bedroom. There was a bunch of old moisture stuff on the roof deck in here, but I didn't see anything that looked remotely recent.
Probably why you replaced the roof a few years ago.
Sure.
It wasn't. We had a specific leak a few years ago and got it repaired, and then we had the roof done because it was coming to the point where it was going to start. It was however 25 or 30 years old, and we just preemptively knew we had to do it. And last kid was in college, kind of decision.
You're finally bleeding slightly less.
Yeah.
Something else I found funny in these attics, there was a lot of tinfoil. So you had a tinfoil hat guy in there or something.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah, I don't know what that's always puzzled me as well.
It's known as reflective insulation, and there's been a couple of fads for it. And one of them we're just kind of ending right now. But it's kind of silly, but it looked like actual tinfoil. It's kind of weird. It was half bunched up. All right, we've already looked at that, so we're going to deal with that ceiling. So we're largely through with the insulation for upstairs. But this picture that was in the room, the bedroom upstairs, I noticed that it had a fair amount of mold on it. Did this live in the basement before?
No, I thought that was part of the art.
It's possible, but it looks more like mold to me.
Wasn't it in Anna's bedroom on the chimney thing? No?
No, it's always been, it was on the door. So it's always been in that room.
Did you buy it used?
No, we brought it brand new. We had it mounted, but it's always been there. That's surprising.
Okay. High humidity levels then. It's experienced.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure, but call me 95, 98.
okay.
But you didn't you didn't have any respiratory issues when you were there, Nate?
No.
Okay.
I'm sensitized to damp buildings now, so it would bother me more than likely if it was a problem. Curse of working in too many buildings.
So you're 95% sure about what?
That's
Excessive humidity has caused mold?
Yep.
Okay.
On that piece of paper.
Yeah. So paper is one of your earliest signs when something's going sideways. So everything else may be fine, and actually old building materials, if you get old building materials to mold up, you've been working at it. It is not easy.
No, we've not noticed a lot of mold in the basement recently, but not in other parts of the house.
Okay.
Like on random pieces of clothing and luggage, usually old.
So
dew point. Tell them about the dew point issues this summer, Nate.
yeah, that was a struggle. So are you guys familiar with dew point? Like when the air can't hold any more moisture?
Yeah, I read that part of your book.
Good. Just making sure. I wanted to make sure Cheryl was following too.
Yeah.
Did you read the book too?
I did not read the book, but I know what dew point is.
Awesome. Okay, then we're good to go. So dew points this summer were 5 to 10 degrees higher than normal, and I noticed all kinds of crap going sideways. And all of my home performance friends on the East Coast are like, "Hey, are you getting more mold calls than usual? Because it used to be like 1 out of 10, and it's like 1 out of 2." So we need to pay a lot more attention to keeping houses dry if these conditions continue. And dew points are up on average about 5 degrees since 2000. So houses are going to start tipping that didn't used to be a problem.
And we designed for this, and our recommendations have this baked in. But we want you to pay attention to this, and we're actually going to recommend devices that make it easier for you to keep track, to make sure so that you don't have anything onerous that you have to do. To be like, oh, hey, you'll be like, oh, hi, turn on the dehumidifier, or don't open the windows today because it's going to cause problems in the house, that kind of thing.
Yep. Our goal is to automate a lot of this stuff. All right, this is the side of the house, and like you were saying, there's not much space between the neighbors in there. Here's the radon pump over here. And I measured some places in your basement for moisture, which I'll go to in a second. This is the dryer vent here. In general, it looks like the house is draining really well. So after all the screwing around you guys did in the basement, I think you finally won. With the exception of the dungeon. That's the last thing that's kind of hanging out there. But keep your eye on this. And then
I have some information about that as well.
Oh, shoot. Go.
I purchased the radon detector that you recommended.
Good.
I forget the brand name, but it was the one from your webpage.
Parentium.
And I've done sort of extensive testing with it in a couple different places in the basement, and it's really good.
Oh, perfect. Then we don't have to screw with it. Yay! That makes me happy. We got enough stuff to do. We don't need to worry about radon. More so than the radon, notice I've got my moisture meter here on the wall. And this was a wet day. It was pouring rain all day. I kept looking at the forecast thinking, I got to go outside and measure the house, but I prefer not to do it while it's pouring. I had to do it while it was pouring. It never stopped. But 0% moisture there, which makes sense because it's above grade basement wall. And that's actually why they did poured concrete, because it's thick and strong. But I'm still amazed that this house is poured concrete, because that's only become common again in the past 20 years. And here's this 100-year-old house with a poured concrete foundation.
And so the reading there is that moisture on that wall is not a problem. Zero. I couldn't see it.
Yeah, sorry, I could see it, but you couldn't. So
Okay.
I
Good.
don't need to actually know anything. I'm kidding. All right, so I love this door. This is the door to the dungeon, and this really gross zombie. And then the poster's held up with a knife. This is awesome. Cheryl, I know that you cringe, but I appreciate the sense of humor. So inside the dungeon, this is what it looks like. You can actually see the moisture spots on the wall, the shiny spots here.
Yeah.
That's wet.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because it was pouring rain and it was fall, which is naturally a wet season. But it was almost pegging the meter. I can't tell if that's an 85 or an 89. It doesn't matter. Either way, it sucks. So we need to deal with that room. I have a very similar room underneath my front porch. And when I spray foamed it, it really helped get the humidity back under control. And then I took the door off to that room, and I put a curtain up instead so that the heat and humidity can get in and out. And I was having issues with mold growing on stuff that we stored up there, and now that's not a problem.
Wow. I never dreamed that we could actually use that room to store stuff.
Well, it's going to cost a couple $1,000, but yeah, you can do it.
And it'll have other ancillary benefits to the whole house.
Yep. So that moldy painting that we were just looking at,
Yeah.
the moisture that molded that, the moisture is buoyant, so it's going to rise through the house. And when you have dampness on the upper floors of a house, it almost always comes from the basement, and you have the dungeon. So hopefully by fixing the dungeon, we'll fix a bunch of moisture problems.
Well, that's really interesting. I'd never considered that. I never thought that dungeon was creating ancillary problems elsewhere. So that's really.
This stuff's cool. It's fun.
It's all science, baby.
Yeah.
The other thing that's we also want to be sure that we tackle that room is when we spray foam the attic. Right now, the moisture can kind of sort of get out through the leaks up there, and we're going to make it tight as a drum. So we're actually going to exacerbate the moisture problems if we don't deal with this one.
Makes sense.
All right, back of the house, just for orientation purposes. So this is the little space that I want to be sure we can spray foam right up here.
Yeah.
I actually just realized I forgot to put it in the scope.
The dormer is there.
Right over here.
Yeah.
Up to the left a little further. Yeah, left, down, left. That right there. Yeah. I would say that's.
Is that the neighbor's house?
Yeah, that's the neighbor's house.
Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're throwing me off. I'm like, what are you seeing that I
I'm
can't see?
sorry.
He's psychic, guys.
It's going to be impossible to see that, Nate.
I know. I'm just like, I have no idea how you figured that out. And then Cheryl said she stuck her head out the window. I'm like, oh, that explains it. Okay, got it.
We need a drone.
Pretty much. The hard part, though, is going to be physically getting in there at that point. So we'll look at it and figure it out. This little bump out on the kitchen, underneath it, looked leaky as hell. I've got a picture in a minute. But I just realized I totally forgot to put it in the work scope. I very seldom have work scopes that go over 60 lines, and yours is over 90. And I forgot one. So I need to put that in there. But we want to deal with that. It's not a big deal. And then your air conditioning units are hiding in here, which isn't really ideal because technically they should probably have more breathing space, but it's probably okay too.
It looked like there was a lot of volume in there.
Yeah, there is, and it's got lots of. I mean, it's not a wall. It's
we don't have a lot of alternative places to put those.
Yeah.
no, yeah. So they're probably going to stay there. I just look at it like these are kind of weird. There's the dogs hanging out.
Yeah.
So there's one other thing I wanted to point out here. I think. No, maybe that was it. So 1, 2, and 3. So we already talked about that because we jumped ahead. here's the space underneath the kitchen bump out. See this gap here?
Yeah.
All of this here, all these little cracks just screamed at me this is going to be a leakage thing. Do you notice the floor being icy in there?
No, because the floor is not on the bump out. The bump out is more the radiator and a little bit of the floor, but most of the kitchen is on top of the basement.
Yes. Yeah, so this is only, the last couple of feet.
And that's where there's a radiator.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a radiator right over here. So it may be fine. We may be able to just axe it from the work scope, but it screamed at me. These are the kinds of things I'm looking for. By the way, all the work that the restoration guys did, this caulk and paint here, man, did they do a nice job. Your house looks like $1 million.
Yeah. No, they did a great job. They weren't cheap, but we think it was worth it.
So this spot may not be a comfort issue, but it could be a fair leakage area.
Yeah, and it could just be it's going to have to be replaced at some point because it's going to start rotting or something.
Yeah. So it might make sense while you got the spray foam guys there to just pull this down and hit it.
Yeah, and then side it again with vinyl or something, God forbid. But for this is a good application for vinyl.
Yeah.
It'll look nice. It's cheap and fast.
Nobody sees it anyway. It's hidden behind all that.
Yeah, exactly. It's up above here. Like, who cares? Nobody's ever going to look at it. So the outdoor units in here, you can just barely see one. This is inside. So that's your ancient one there. And then this is the one that's up on the third floor, fourth floor, technically.
Oh, really? I always thought it was the reverse. So I thought that, big one, big part of the house, small one, small part of the house. Big, small, small.
Yeah, so I think this is a 3-tonner that goes upstairs, and this is a 2.5-tonner that goes down.
I had no idea.
If memory serves, don't shoot me if I'm reversing.
Anyway,
I'm pretty sure.
Our view is we got to replace those things, kind of irrespective of this. We need to replace those things. So
Yeah, they're due, and we've got calculations, which is up next, right after photos, to show you what size they need to be. This is the neighbors. This also happens to be pretty much exactly what you're going to get. It's going to look very similar to this, only like doing a heat pump versus an air conditioner is really smart because it's only like $500 more, and then you have heating capabilities in addition to cooling. But the only difference with the heat pump is it'll be on legs, so it'll be a foot off the ground, so it stays out of the snow.
Which you probably don't get much of under there, but it's a good idea to have it on stilts anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we joke this is the droid you're looking for. It ends up on legs. They look like a droid. They totally look like a Star Wars character. Okay. So switching over to HVAC from leakage in the house and moisture issues. This is the unit up in the attic, obviously. We want to spray foam this whole area. We have to get rid of the 80% furnace doing this because you're not allowed to have spray foam around B vents like this. So B vent that's a double wall vent which starts right here. So you could potentially do a 90%er, but if you do the heat pump version, which means we need to run an extra wire, it needs an extra thick wire, then we get dehumidification capabilities out the yin yang. Which is what we want. We want to be able to keep your house dry whenever we want to. So it makes sense to do the heat pump at that point anyway. Heat pump.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the 90%, 80% heat pump thing? I'm just.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 90%, 80% furnace, my bad. So this is an 80% furnace.
80% efficiency, it's combustion efficiency. And the combustion efficiency relates back to the type of venting that you have. 80% efficiency means that there's a lot of heat still in the exhaust, and so it needs a hot multi-wall exhaust.
Understood.
And whereas a more efficient furnace is going to have lower temperature exhaust because it's pulled more of the heat out of the combustion gases.
Right.
But you're still going to need to figure out where to vent it. Still
Got
going to need to vent it. Whereas if you go with a heat pump, you can do away with all of these roof penetrations altogether.
Because it's electric.
Because it's electric, no exhaust.
Understood.
And we'd like to not have gas lines running all over your house, if possible. And so here's a gas line that can be abandoned.
Okay, so what you've told me the benefits of a heat pump. What are the drawbacks of a heat pump? So, so that why would anyone ever consider having a 90% gas-fired furnace here?
Well, the technology is advanced to the point where I'm baffled too. But then I drive an electric car, and I wonder why anybody would drive a gas car. So the wrong guy to ask.
What about you?
So it used to be that heat pumps cost way the heck more to operate than furnaces did. And now they're coming into where they're relatively close because of the latest generation of heat pumps. So a lot of this is really just lag in the industry. They've been burned by heat pumps in the past and client frustrations with them. And now a lot of those have actually been technologically solved, but it's going to be another 10 or 20 years before the industry actually realizes it.
So we've run into a couple of problems with heat pumps too. If you just by being $20 cheap on the thermostat, we have one client who spent $18,000 over the last 4 years more on energy and fucking around because of a $40 thermostat.
Yeah, the settings on these are super finicky.
And so the heat pump gets blamed for the incompetent HVAC guy.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the heat pump's fault. We've had others. If you set them up so that you shut the heat pump off when it gets cold, well, now you're running on straight resistance electricity. But a lot of people are under the presumption that that's actually a good behavior, and so a lot of it comes down to not enough money in budgeted for commissioning, not enough money budgeted for training. There's all kinds of these are problems that other people have. You're not gonna, but they're not. They're unfortunately a lot more common than you would think. Okay. So people get high bills, and it's not the heat pump's fault.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say they're more complex to specify, design, operate than a?
It's not necessarily that they're more complex, because a lot of these HVAC guys are pretty sharp. It's just the fact that if it's not common, they're not used to it.
Okay.
Okay. If they were doing, a lot of the guys that are doing it every day, they're great at it.
Yeah, there's a guy named Brad Hicks down in South Carolina that I've befriended that sells almost exclusively Greenspeed units. That's the Carrier branded version of this. The Bryant version is called the Evolution, which is what your neighbor has, only as a step down. Brad's like, I love these things. Like the failure rate is 4 or 8% of what the other ones are. As long as you watch your static pressure, the pressure inside the ducts, which means the duct system needs to be good, and this one isn't. So it's another thing that contributes.
A lot of times people will oversize the equipment, and then the limiting factor again is the duct. We got to put this great big unit on your house, but we're going to put an 800 horsepower engine in your house. We only have 200 horsepower at the transmission, so you're still only going to get 150 horsepower, but you got an 800 horsepower engine. It defies logic, but there you go.
And then we wonder why the transmission breaks. The easier way to look at it is imagine giving an Olympic athlete a straw and then expecting them to run a race. Expect them to collapse.
Yeah, here, breathe through this.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nate, you just said that you got to watch the static pressure, so you got to have good ducts, but this house doesn't.
Correct.
This is another reason to replace the ducts. Did I get that right?
Yep, you got it. I just don't trust this duct system. It may be okay if I test it, but the odds aren't high.
Okay.
So this is just a close-up of that. This is where it goes through the roof, and this we can close off. I don't have to tell you that.
You also have to get up on the roof and, you know,
We're
like
gonna have to figure that piece out. Yet.
flash the chimney or something.
Yeah, we'll have to flash where that is. It can be at least somewhat flashed from below, but it needs to be dealt with on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a picture of this thing that I go and dig around in every year, twice a year, and I hate that.
Yeah. If we can make these metal ducts in some way, you'll like it a lot better with proper dampers in there that you can swing easily.
Yeah.
Like this could be so much better.
Yeah.
This is the return for the house. So
It's just blowing out into the space, which is an outdoor space.
Yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah.
This is like having this size thing in the hull of a boat and then wondering why it sinks. It's such bad design. Because the more I looked at this duct system, the more I'm like, I despise this thing. So, like I said, we don't normally recommend replacing duct systems, but you're one of the lucky ones. So this is the electronic air cleaner. And remember how it was just squeaky clean? And it just seemed weird that there was nothing on it whatsoever. And then inside, so there's two pieces of the air cleaner. This is the second piece that's still in there. Look at all the dust that has been impacted here.
Yeah, so it's not doing anything.
Yeah, when you guys
How that dust comes by it, it's not getting caught.
yeah, it just gets blown back into the house, and that's why you notice it being dusty.
Would you, is this something that our HVAC guy should have been aware of?
Probably yes. It may not be something he really looks for. Like, we try not to throw people under the bus.
No,
You like him, so if you like him, we'll find a way to work with him. And he uses
See how it
the
goes.
you want to use, so we're good.
he's also the guy that just fixed the boiler, so.
Yeah, exactly. So
pros and
Is-
cons there.
Does he tend to be a wethead? Because these guys tend to sort of lean one way or the other sometimes.
Yeah.
A wet head. What's a wet
Yeah,
head?
like he doesn't really love doing forced air. He likes doing water.
I don't know.
Never.
Next time I buy him a beer, I'll see how he feels about wet head. I don't
Well,
know.
because the Radiant people hate forced air. They call it all kinds of nasty. Oh, the torched air, that stuff sucks. Yada yada.
I mean, well,
You
it is true that Bill did not install this unit up on the third floor. That was installed by the previous owners. But the boiler downstairs, Bill put that in himself.
Okay.
He replaced that. So that I guess is suggestive of wet head tendencies
And the water heater.
and the water heater.
okay, yeah, there you go. So we jokingly call ourselves airheads. Arlene,
My house is heated with big radiators like yours, so I'm a little of both.
and actually, I have hydraulics in my house, but I despise them until a wet head friend of mine just helped me get it right. All right, here's more of the duct system where they're sneaking down. This is the bathroom right here. Well, you can see this is the drain line to the bathroom. And here's more of that foil. It just kept cracking me up. But see here where this thing's pinched a little bit. I don't love that. At least this is not an awful turn that's making here. But I just don't like flex stuff if we can get rid of it. We already looked at this. So this is we're going to have to do some stuff like that.
Can we get rid of those plates as well?
I throw them out the window?
Yeah,
No, say no, Nate.
What?
Say no.
it's this is a domestic joke.
Oh, okay.
The mother-in-law is obsessed with these plates. If she could have her way, there would be plates on every wall. So sorry, I don't mean to prolong things here.
Oh, good. So these events are indicative of probably like late 70s, something like that. it's not like it's a big deal, but I look at those and think, all right, those have been around for a little while.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because that's when all that was done. Now this is down in the basement. This is the garage door right here, and then these are going to your office. At least this is transitioning to hard duct here,
Yeah.
but it doesn't look like it's hard duct right here. So
It looks like a better job though.
Yeah.
With the flex.
Yeah.
It's not hideous, but in replacing the system downstairs, we're recommending a step up in size, and we may not have the ductwork to do it. But we can figure that out on my next visit. I'll do the testing for that.
And ideally, that would be put off a year or two.
We're going to use the budget as it is.
Well, not only that, we'd like to see how you like
The house.
and how you feel about the pretty significant changes we make, and we'd also like to see what the energy looks like and your feedback on comfort, because a lot of that feedback helps inform us of whether we need to adjust some of our assumptions going forward.
Understood.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to replace the air conditioner unit and for the first floor
I don't
before
think so.
replacing this duct, or it gets all done at once?
Can you
That,
repeat?
it depends.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is that we all agree that the air conditioner for the first floor is really old, right?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And I'd just rather replace it before it fails, and we have to do something kind of in a rush.
Oh, got it. So
That's the reason I would be reluctant to dealing with the first floor air conditioning kind of a couple
That
years
could-
down the road.
That could possibly be replaced, and then you could take the measurements to see how the ductwork was handling the new equipment.
Yeah.
And then you could be like, okay, so we're going to lock this on low for a while and then come fix the ductwork.
now the other thing that you could do is because the upstairs system will be replaced. What we find pretty consistently is if you cool the second floor of a building, the first floor is fine because the cool tends to fall. And also, if you're undersizing the system a little bit, it runs harder and it does a better job at dehumidification. And if the air feels dry, you may find that you're perfectly happy at 76 or 78 degrees, and it doesn't really matter if the first floor is running at all.
Well, that's the other thing. We're sort of interested in understanding how badly you need that first floor system after we get done fixing the rest of this house.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I get that.
So we're not anxious to, make any moves down here. We'd like to sort of do the upper, and then see how it goes.
Yep, that makes sense. It's certainly the case that, when it gets really sweltering hot, we can sort of live with how it feels in the first floor, but in the second floor and the third floor, it just gets unbearable.
So if we were able, the other way of looking at this is that if it ends up being really amazing, and it manages the first floor except for 1 or 2 days a year, that unit downstairs, if it only gets used 1 or 2 days a year, might outlast you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's all kinds of the permutations spread out in all kinds of directions.
I get it.
Which is why we had to argue for 3.5 hours over what.
I think we argued for about 10 or 15 minutes. The rest of the time we were just building and working and looking at pictures and iterating.
So here's an example of what the hell. Why are there 2 vents here? And that's obviously by the stairs.
We moved one because of something. I don't think it was originally there.
Probably not, but it was just weird.
Yeah.
So I see stuff like this, and I'm like, all right, that makes me not trust the system. What's going on?
I see stuff like that, and I just want to know this history because there's some very interesting history behind it.
Yeah.
We're never going to hear the story, I'm sure.
No. that installer's probably long gone. You
Well,
might-
no, we put a bookcase. So in the living room, there's a bookcase over top of the vent, and we just moved it. And rather than store that, I just put it there so we didn't lose it.
Oh,
That's
okay. So that's just sitting there.
It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything.
Oh,
And
right.
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
bookcase over top of a hole.
Okay. Awesome.
There's a story.
Oh my God, I love it.
Something else about my wife you need to understand. She has her mother-in-law is obsessed with plates, and she tends to just pile things up on top of other things.
Oh, okay.
So
So
I'm hoping that this project will somehow alleviate that as well.
there.
Comes from maximum piler of all.
Let's move on, Cheryl.
So I think you guys solved the boiler problem, which makes Ted and I really happy because this is a cast iron boiler more than likely. Ted, do you think it's cast iron? You know these better.
Yeah, I'm not really all that familiar. I'm sure Bryant didn't make it, so it's probably Utica or something like that. They just put their label on it.
Yeah.
So it's probably one of these other guys. I'm sure Hausch knows exactly what that is.
Yeah, and unfortunately he's not here, so we don't. Tell
Yeah,
us.
he could chat.
Oh wait, no, he is. He is. I'm sorry. Why am I?
But so anyway, yeah, that's good. That's great. The guy's got it sorted.
If we don't have to deal with that, I'm tickled because that's money I didn't want to spend. We do try to look at the money like it's ours, so we're not just trying to spend your money. We just want to spend enough so that the result happens, but then stop.
We like to get above 85% certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's cast iron, Hausch says.
There we go.
So
Good. He's a wet-head. So, well, he's good. He's good at being an airhead.
So
too.
he's sort of both.
Yeah, he's both.
can you just elaborate a tiny bit on cast iron? Is this is a good thing? This means it's a quality boiler, and it was put in 2011, right?
Three, it looks like.
Yeah, three.
Three.
Um,
Oh yeah. And so it's cast iron, so it's going to last a long time. So that this is just
Yeah, it's a 2050. It's a 2050 boiler.
so it's we're fine with this thing.
We're fine with that.
yeah.
Good.
Until you decide you want to take the gas meter away.
Okay.
Yeah, just leave this thing. You can get more efficient boilers, but then it'll die in 10 years. And it just isn't worth the trouble. Because Ted did that in his house. He bought a new one that was kind of exotic at the time. And what did it last, Ted? 8 years?
No, 17 years, I think.
But still, this is a 50, 60 year.
And I horsed around with them a ton. I mean, they didn't know me anything, but with gas prices where they are, the savings is going to be hard to measure with a magnifying glass.
Got it.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. So if he got it working, man, we're good. That was the one thing that I wasn't dealing with, and I'm so happy to hear that I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
Because this was freaking me the hell out. That, and then this.
Well, you give us a budget, and so we like to come up with at least one package that fits the budget. And if we had to change that boiler, there's no package.
Yeah. So, because replacing that boiler with a nice boiler is like 10 grand, somewhere in that ballpark. We'll get the budgets a little bit. So here's me doing combustion safety testing. So this is my probe. I drilled a little hole right here so I could see what the carbon monoxide was after the inducer. And I was getting these crazy numbers. Like, I don't like to see anything.
Okay, you could keep going.
So, yeah, we're good. Water temps, we figured out what this was. It was these are lower temps than I was hoping to see.
I think that's a house. Do you think that's an outdoor reset?
I'm betting that. This is not the right tool to measure that. You're not supposed to use this on a metal surface. But I also put my hand on it to kind of give a reconciliation point, and I could hold my hand there all day long. So 100 degrees sounds about right. It was warm, but it wasn't scalding. All right, water heater. Like I said, it tested okay for draft. They're usually good for about 10 years. So you're kind of getting there. And then the carbon monoxide was a little higher than I'd like to see, which means they're not burning quite as well as they could anymore. So you just want to be aware. it started off, this is a 50, that was where it started when it first ran, and then over time it settled to about 20. All right, last couple of pictures. I didn't ask you guys, is redoing the kitchen anywhere in the plan, or are you just not worried about it?
It's not in the immediate plan. We're gonna do, the next room that we'll do will probably be bathroom in the second floor. Is that fair to say? So no, it's not in the near-term planning.
Okay.
Is this the only gas appliance there?
In the kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the stove, the oven. This is just the
Oh.
burners. The oven is gas.
The oven's gas too. It's not electric.
No, it's gas.
Okay, I forgot to look, so I'm glad you know, Cheryl. When it comes time, you can look at electric options. The best way to check, because most people love gas, and I don't blame you, I do too. Try an induction hot plate. They use magnets instead of heat, and they turn up and down just like gas. And a good hot plate's $70 that you can try out. So don't worry about it now. But
This is the one that we use, and we love it.
Can we? Cool.
And it's $70, and so even if you hate it, it's $70.
Yeah. And so what do? You put it in your kitchen and use it in lieu of your stove?
Yeah, and actually, the stove ends up being the sticking point for most people for changing to gas. So what we found is by recommending these things, people get used to using these and they like them better than gas because they control better and they operate faster.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, which are the reasons people hate electric over and prefer gas is because gas is faster and more controllable. Well, this is even better. I can set it so I get these big honking chunks of chocolate and then cut it into small enough pieces and then make chocolate with almonds. And sometimes I also need to decrystallize honey. I can set the thing to 110 to 120 degrees.
what are you bringing over, Liz?
Oh, yeah. This is a
My goodness, that's the
Whole team helping us today.
thing of pizza chocolate,
Oh yeah.
and I break it into pretty big little pieces and melt it on there.
Great steer.
And then here are the little Christmas, throw almonds in there and make little almond. So anyway,
Good, by the way. He came to visit a little bit ago and left some of those. So
anyway, sorry to take so long, but that's the big barrier for people for electrification.
Yeah.
And we think we've solved it.
Very interesting.
Okay. I think that was basically it. Let's see. Yeah, you guys have this. I love this. This actually works really nicely. There's just been some studies that show that downdraft actually works okay, which surprised the heck out of me. And yours was also really quiet. You can talk over it. So be sure you run this whenever you're cooking.
Hear that, Cheryl?
Yep. I don't find it so quiet.
Compared to most of them, it's really
Oh
quiet.
yeah. Yeah, I just don't like them at all.
Yeah. I was out of Fubots when I was there. I highly recommend you guys get a Fubot air quality monitor, which will be in there. And you'll watch that thing turn orange, which is bad, and you'll be like, crap, I got to turn it on.
This is another reason you want induction, because it's not creating all kinds of pollutants that you breathe.
Yeah, you wouldn't go put your car in the garage, close the door, and just stand in there while the car runs. That's just what you're doing when you're cooking.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you call it? A Foobot?
I've got a link for it for you. Foobot. And ideally, you place several of them, but at least get one. And then we can watch temperature, humidity, chemicals, and dust in the house. And we can use that to tune the house, particularly post-project. But even pre-project, we can see if there's issues or not.
Good.
and I was out of them. Normally I'd bring you one. That's yeah. Last thing is chimney lock tops, which I'll mention. They were down the list a little bit, but a chimney lock top is a spring-loaded damper that goes up on the roof, or on top of the flue, way up on the top of the chimney, and then you drop a steel cable down here, and then you can close the damper from the bottom. It may or may not be a big leakage issue, but here's the flue for that fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're getting close, and look, there's something running up the flue there. If we're getting close on air sealing, and we think, boy, just a little bit more, and it'll probably tip the house, this is one of the things we can do.
Okay.
They're $600 to $800 a pop installed.
And that thing that's going up the flue there, I thought that was like a open shut valve or something.
Might be.
Yeah, it could be. I didn't look that closely on that piece. I was
Damper. Yeah.
I was not.
It's an overwhelming house, so the little stuff.
Yeah, it's like I'll figure that out later if need be.
Okay.
I needed to make sure I collected enough data so that we could figure this out, and I got there. So we like to, like Ted said, get to at least 85% certainty, and we're there. So let's. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, before we dig into that, we might want another meeting. So let's talk.
Pineapple.
Yeah. No, how are you guys doing?
I don't know. I'm not sure how much is ahead of us here, Nate.
45 minutes.
You good? How are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd rather get this over with in one shot.
This is a load calc, and it basically is telling us the BTUs under the coldest possible conditions that each of your floors are losing.
And for reference, 12,000 BTUs is 1 ton of either heating or cooling for a heat pump. So 37,000, this is basically 3 tons because it's close to 36. The second and third floor, if you add these together, this is basically 3 tons. And then furnaces come in 20,000 BTU increments in general. It's not perfect, but in general, you can buy a 40,000 furnace, a 60,000 furnace, an 80,000 furnace, and so forth. But there's a couple of different numbers here. Well, obviously, there's a ton on this page. See this required heating equipment output capacity?
That's with all kinds of fudge factor.
Yeah, this has a bunch of fudge factor. This is pretty close to what's known as the industry standard, and that's manual J. And this is the house with package 1. That is basically our recommendation. It's deal with the third floor, deal with a few other air sealing opportunities, and call it a day, and see if we get close enough. So this has a lot of fudge factor, and in fact, it has 3. It has a fudge factor because it assumes the equipment is not going to perform well. It has a fudge factor assuming the ductwork or the distribution system isn't going to work well. And it has a fudge factor on top of that just in case the other 2 weren't enough. And I actually kid you not. That's pretty much what it is.
What we find is we can go smaller than these floor by floor loads, the block loads, and we're still okay.
Yeah.
And we're tracking our jobs, so we know this.
Yeah. You can basically have this number and still be okay. So then these loads here, these are called block loads. This is how much it takes to heat each floor of the house, according to the model. And note these numbers here. See how high well, you don't know that they're high. So on a spectrum, if these numbers, this is how much it takes to heat each square foot. If these are under 15, that's good. If it's under 10, it's great. The spray foamed areas that don't really need any heat are good. and then see the first and second floor with the brick walls, and then the basement that's exposed. These are all pretty hideously high.
But again, remember that these models don't recognize that you're going to have all that embedded BTU to carry you through those coldest days.
The thermal mass.
Uh,
Even like one or two
plus,
cold.
that boiler is bigger than all of this anyway, so you have no worries about this.
Yeah, there's no issues. But the key thing to take away from this is the first floor is 3 tons, the second and third floor are 3 tons. So basically, if we do a 3-ton heat pump that handles the first floor and a 3-ton heat pump that handles the second and the third, we're very likely to be okay. And then
If you wanted to go straight electric,
yep,
which isn't the recommended plan, but it leaves the door open.
yes. So if we choose our equipment carefully now, that is an option down the road. Because say there's some crazy shock that ends up quadrupling gas prices, which sounds crazy, but prices were quadruple what they are today in 2003. Because I remember, I damn near lost my house. I was between jobs, got a $500 gas bill for keeping a 1,200 square foot house 60 degrees. About croaked.
They got pretty bad in 2009 too.
Yeah. So if you set up where you can run either electric or gas, you can optimize the fuel costs if need be.
And there's a good chance electricity is going to get cheaper as more and more renewables come online.
It's likely to be the least expensive fuel moving forward. So keep all that in mind. So this is the recommended package. Keep an eye on this 33 here. This is basically doing everything that we think is reasonable to this house. We went from 137 to 107 here. See that? And most of it came from the basement by spray foaming the basement walls. But this is where the model is oftentimes not that great. We don't necessarily trust the numbers to do that well.
Rory, you kind of lost me there. We just switched from one slide to another one. We went from what? The recommended to the not recommended, or what?
Yeah, we're taking you to the okay. Let's spend all of the money you got in your retirement and make this house into a drum, and that means spray foaming your basement walls, and that makes your basement nice and toasty and not use very much energy. But this is not something that so we made the recommendation so that we could do the model, so that we could show you that we looked at it.
Okay. Can we go back to the recommended one more time?
Yep, here you go.
That's this one here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get Nate said the main takeaway is that 3 tons for the first floor and 3 tons for the second and third floor, which can be done with 2 3-ton heat pump units, right?
That's right.
But the recommendation is not to have a heat pump on the first floor right now.
That's right.
Yeah, so all we're going to do is this one for now. And then we see if this is needed, and if you decide you want to push further down the road to electrify everything, or that air conditioner conks, or
all of the ors that we already went through. You get to the point where you're using it more than 3 days a year, and you wear it out.
Right.
Does that make sense?
If we went, if we put a 3-ton heat pump for the first floor,
Mm-hmm.
we would be using this in the winter to do what? To do heating? I mean, we like the radiators, right?
Well, right now you wouldn't be using it to do heating.
Yeah.
But in the future you could if you wanted to, and you would have an understanding of the level of comfort that this amazing equipment provides because you have it on your second and third floor.
Got it.
If you want to do all of it at the same time, let's pull the Band-Aid off and do it.
We would rather not, though, because because we're interested to see what happens in doing it in stages.
I think I tend to agree with that. I'm just still trying to figure out exactly what the options are on the first floor. So and it's not like get rid of the gas meter. It's install this heat pump so that I could decide on any given day whether I'm gonna, in the winter, for example, heat the house with forced air or heat the house with radiators.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the reason you would heat the house with forced air in the winter are twofold. One, it's very mild outdoors, and so it's just a better way of heating. Or two, it's been really dry and you need to humidify.
Okay.
And so you're going to run the forced air because it humidifies, which your radiant doesn't do.
Okay. I got it.
Or three, you have indoor air quality issues.
Yep.
And with the heat pump, we can manage your indoor air quality, both through really good filtration and potentially by bringing in fresh air from outdoors. So we have all kinds of choices for what we can do with forced air for occupants indoors, inside of houses.
Yeah.
That we can't do with hydronic.
Okay.
Strengths and weaknesses to everything.
My mother, when we replaced her equipment with this really high-end equipment, and then set it to gently turn the air over continuously, she said, "It's really strange, Teddy. I never have to dust anymore."
Weird. Interesting.
And subsequently, we start keeping track of particulates. So dusting is, cleanliness, right? But particulates is health.
Right.
And so by being able to control particulates, the dust is possibly the lesser of the two benefits.
Understood.
And the last reason would be, say, energy prices flip-flop. You've got options.
Got it.
We like that you're keeping your boiler. We're not at all going to push you to abandon it.
No. Keep it. It's for $14 a month for insurance. Just keep the damn thing. That's the cost of your meter.
Yeah.
Just keep it.
Just keep it.
Okay. I won't even really. I'll just mention that these exist. These are energy use projections. There is a big issue with these. You'll notice that they are almost entirely electric, and that is a function of the model having a weakness. Like, it's tough to push it one way or the other, and we wanted to have some understanding what the electric usage would be. So basically, worst case, it's showing about 30,000 kilowatt hours a year, which would triple your electric usage. But then the gas usage goes to almost zero.
We also like to do this, put a stake in the ground before we leave, and then come back and see how far away from the stake we landed. Now, in this house, we're not really concerned about our predictions and all of those things, but in some cases, we like to know how close to the pin did we land. With a less complicated model, it's very reassuring to us to say, okay, this is and there's finance involved in it, and we told these people it was going to cost them $80 a month, and that's really all they could afford, and we were counting on $20 in energy savings to show up in order to make that $80 a month, and we don't want to take food off their kids' plates. Because most of the people that we're dealing with, are sort of middle class and below. $20 a month might matter.
I get it.
So it's not really a good fit with a complicated project in a big house like this, but it's still part of our practice, so we keep doing it.
No, I appreciate that.
And hence, we'll follow up a year later and be like, so what actually happened? What's the energy use?
We'd like to know anyway, just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
No, we'd be happy to continue to participate in measurements in the future.
Cool. We'd be happy to have you participate. All right, so we are finally to the work scope. So what I'll focus on is the budget package, basically the piece that we think you should do, for lack of a better word.
So let me try to understand the difference between the budget package. What do you call the other package? The luxury package?
There's a sweet spot, which is like, all right, we would like to go this far, and we think we'll nail all of your goals with this without going totally insane, and then we'll show you insane.
And so I just like to understand what work is distinguishes between budget and insane. Is it is it spray foaming the basement and things like that? Is it
Spray foaming the basement and doing the additional heat pump,
Yep.
okay?
And
I
then
understand.
we had recommended replacing the boiler. I have solar and storage, really rough numbers, because that depends on a bunch of things. So there's all kinds of stuff in here. It'll all become clear. We're finally to that point. Normally I get here in like 45 minutes, and yours was not one of those.
Yeah, sorry about this.
No, well, we appreciate your guys' time as well.
We just want to make sure that you get your head around this as well as possible, and that you feel like you got your value from what you paid us.
All this is in a folder, so you'll be able to go to the folder and go through it, and then make notes as you have questions, because undoubtedly this isn't going to sink in, and you're going to go through it a couple of times.
Okay.
And so that's sort of the iterative process of doing this. But by having the client be a partner and really understand this stuff, it's awesome.
It's more fun for us, and odds are higher.
You know, being involved in this project is sort of one reason that we went down this road. So we're very much interested in this. Okay, let's go.
Cool. Okay. So this, by the way, this is a Google Sheet. So it's an Excel document that I'll share to you tomorrow, probably.
Okay.
And then you can play with this. So you can make a new tab. The only thing I ask is, if you're going to play with this, copy and paste it to another tab and leave this one as is, so we can remember where we started.
Will do.
So here's kind of how I work these things. It is funny. It's not a pretty spreadsheet, but it's effective, as I think you'll agree. So the budget package, we were looking for $200 or $300 a month, which gives us up to, say, 50 grand to play with. The basics of what's involved are foam the third floor where possible, so like that's skipping the cathedral ceiling like we discussed. Replace the ductwork and the HVAC for the second and third floor. That's the basics of what's in here. We ended up doing this by accident, backwards. We modeled everything. We're like, crap, this is not what we want to recommend. We don't want to recommend doing the first floor HVAC yet. So this is actually package 4 in the modeling documents.
Okay.
So I made note of that. And then we had all of these goals here. Basically, we're going to deal with all of them. We'll only halfway deal with winter dryness for you. Because well, you know,
It might deal with it. It might deal with it.
Yeah. Well, it's going to go to your bedroom, so keeping your skin moist is a function of how many hours of the day. It's a cumulative thing. How many hours of the day you spend in an environment that's dry. So at least if while you're sleeping, it's not crazy dry, you may be okay. But the other one that this does not deal with is carbon monoxide, and you just dealt with it. So I am so happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, crap, I don't know what to do with that one. But we're going to tackle better air quality. We're going to deal with humidity in the summer. We're going to make the third floor comfortable. I guess we won't touch water usage. We're going to deal with ice damming. We're going to deal with the dungeon. And then there's HVAC planning. So this is a 85% confidence with this package. And then how this works.
Does that mean that it doesn't include the HVAC equipment?
Oh, it's in here. Everything's in here. For this package here, we're only recommending the second and third floor HVAC.
I understand that. It was the word planning that threw me off. I thought that suggested that the equipment is not included in this $50,000 price.
No, the equipment is in there. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, my bad. So,
Got it.
but we're suggesting which piece of equipment for this replacement, and then the rest we can figure out as time moves forward.
Okay.
But we have the load calculations, which is the important part. So we have an idea of what size we're going to need. There's 5 columns here. I didn't end up putting many links in. I spent all day working on this thing, trying to get it together in my head so I could present it reasonably quickly. And here we are 2 hours in. But you'll see there's the first column is work scope. So this is something that you can give to a contractor and have a prayer of apples to apples bids coming back. Reasoning is important. So that's why this individual item is in here. And our hope is that you can read this after the fact and remind yourself of what's going on. Because there's no way you're going to maintain, you aren't going to retain all this information tonight. This will let you refresh yourself. There's a link if there's something to go read. And then we give you 2 costs. So it's kind of we want this to be a realistic number and maybe a touch on the high side, but not much, for having a contractor do something. And then on the lower side, there's going to be different options. Like there are different heat pumps you can buy. You can take a step down and it'll save you a couple grand. But there's other compromises that come with it. Or I didn't give you guys a lot of DIY work because you don't have a lot of extra time. But sometimes there's a DIY thing here where it's like, okay, you want to clean out the insulation, you can save yourself $1,500 doing that. All right, it's worth $1,500 to save the money. So you'll see there's going to be a pretty big spread here, and the spread between these two gets really wide at the end. And likely the budget number is going to land somewhere in between these two numbers when we figure out what we're actually going to do to the house. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Air sealing. The house is currently at about a 5,000, and let me zoom in here so you don't have to work so hard to see it. Oh, perfect. That is perfect, guys. 5,000 down to 3,500. This is kind of a gimme goal, I hope. Although now I've said it, and we're going to totally whiff the target. But this is the blower door target, and this is what we did the energy models based on. We have to make a guess of where we can get on leakage.
Okay.
I've got $1 to $2 grand here. This is basically a slush fund. Complicated projects, something crazy is going to hit us. If we have a little bit extra built in, it doesn't hurt as much if we use it, and then we're really happy if we don't.
So a lot of times, this is a thing where people have a budget of, say, $24,000 on the project, and if you come back at the end and you have a $25,500 bill, they don't have the $1,500. And so it's very important that when we do our budgeting, we budget a little bit high so that when we go $24,000, hopefully it ends up at 22 and a half. But if it does end up at 24, they're not screwed.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay. Project
I
manager.
appreciate how you guys taking into account these kinds of issues. Frankly, $1,500 over budget's not going to kill us, but I get why that's really important part of your business.
Yes.
It's also it's an attitude thing. Like if we get
absolutely
over, you're going to be like, Nate, damn it, why are we over? Where if we come in and like, oh, so we didn't need to use a slush fund, you're like, oh, cool. It's the exact same money.
It's the exact same money, right?
It doesn't matter. We're losing things. And winning doesn't matter quite as much. So there's a lot of psychology built into all
Yeah.
that. When we try, we still fail horribly.
You still fail. Oh, well.
Yeah, we do our best. Okay, so project management. This is going to depend on a bunch of things. So I have $4 to $6 grand built in here. Depends on how many trips you want me to make. If you're going to do 2 HVAC systems, if we're going to split the thing up, like there's a bunch of question marks. So don't worry. This is where I was saying, like, look at this more like monopoly money to some extent. Just pay attention to what's going on here. Um, and the next step is we figure out A, what are we doing, and B, what is the budget for each piece. So I'll tell you once we settle on what we're actually doing.
Okay.
But there's too. I don't want to give you a hard number and then realize it's twice as much work. Little thing, the dryer vent is it's not totally flex, but it's kind of half flex. That is actually a fire hazard. That should be hard duct instead. So that's why that's in here. There's some safety items in here.
Well, it's also a gas dryer, and so it should be hard pipe because that one could puncture. And it's an indoor air quality issue. You're using natural gas in your dryer instead of electric. You want that exhausted outdoors.
Much appreciated.
No problem. Boiler cleaning and tuning. Look, I had $200 to $800, and you came in at $150. I love it when stuff like that. So this is one of those where I don't know what the heck's going to end up being involved, so I gave it a wide range. Check the chimney for obstructions. Sounds like that's not a problem, but I wanted to put it in here. Radon monitor, have done.
Nate?
Yeah.
On row 25 there, check chimney for obstructions. Do you mean our wood-burning fireplace or the chimney from our boiler?
Yeah, the boiler. Might have been a bird in the flue causing it.
I got it. But now that we're less worried about this, given that the CO problem seems to have been alleviated, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You did both of those things for $150.
Awesome.
Yeah, so there's $1,000 out of this right here, or $400 here. So yay. And the radon monitor you already did, so that's good to go. For the garage, you guys don't really have any place else to put it, but because the garage is by pressure inside the house, try not to store anything that has an engine in there, or gasoline, or any chemicals in there.
Okay.
Here's the Fubot air quality monitors that I mentioned. There is a link here that you can click. So it's an Amazon link. We love these things. They have a dashboard, so we can watch what's going on over time, and we can select different time periods, and it really helps us figure stuff out and understand what the heck's going on. One is good. So at least we have some idea what's going on. Ideally, you do one per floor, which you have 4. And I have discount codes, so it doesn't have to cost that much. But this is up to you guys. We're just putting it out there. But at least if you get one, we have some idea what the heck's going on.
These things cost $650 a piece or $200 a piece? I don't understand.
They're $200 a piece,
Okay.
but they offer discounts when you order multiples, so it's more like $650 for 4.
Okay, I understand what that number is now.
Yep, good. Keep asking. Even if it's Monopoly money, right? Okay, duct design. We were talking about this. So we want to make sure that we specify which sizes duct are going to each room and how much airflow each room should be getting, according to a number of calculations. If we don't do this, the odds of failure are super high. You don't have to use us for this, but we really recommend that it gets done.
Okay.
And the other thing that's in here is, notice I have a wide spread, $900 to $1,800. We may need to zone, or it's worth considering zoning the second and third floors, to where the third floor would be on one zone and then the second floor would be on another. But that makes for much more complicated duct design, and so it costs more to do. That would let you you'd have a thermostat upstairs and a thermostat in your room, and they would run separately from each other.
But they would both be running off of the same heat pump up in the third floor attic.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Got it.
And we want to, if you have interest in doing that, we want to do that now because it determines largely how the duct system is done. And if we do it later, instead of needing 2 zone dampers, one for the second floor, one for the third floor, or maybe 3 zone dampers, we're going to need 15 because we're going to have to do one run. And these zone dampers are like 200, 300 bucks a piece.
Wholesale, probably 500 to 600, maybe 700 installed. I mean, you're talking a $10,000 swing.
I like these zones. It's like Stonos for air.
So anyway, it's something to consider. Basically, if there isn't a duct design done someplace on this system, all bets are off on results.
And so this 1800 to 900, this is simply for the design of the duct system, correct?
That's right.
It's kind of annoying, but yeah.
No, I get that design is valuable. I just want to understand what these numbers mean.
Good. Keep asking questions.
Okay.
So here's the specification for the heat pump. I didn't duplicate this for the other one, but it's going to be the exact same specification. So
What
this
do you mean the other one. What is the other one?
the one for the first floor.
Okay.
Here we're recommending.
Isn't in this package anyway, but there are other packages below this.
Okay.
See how we're on line 30? We have to go to line 90, but I'm going to stop before then and let you guys just read and then ask questions later,
Okay.
so we can all go to bed. But you'll see this is a very detailed spec that we've been developing over time so that it's difficult to break. Because it's really important all this gets done. Note that there's a 6-inch fresh air scuttle. So this is a duct going to the outdoors that pulls in outdoor air so that you've got fresh air coming into the house. Although it's not truly fresh air, particularly in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. We've got the worst air in the country after California. So you want to run it through the filter, and that's why the fan is to be set to continuous low.
Okay.
And then we also put the fresh air damper so that it is closed below 20 and above 80, so that we aren't adding a ton of extra heat or cold in the brutal weather. And then, so these are 11 to 14 grand. A fairly basic replacement, because that system's kind of a pain in the neck to get up there, is probably going to be between $8,000 and $9,000. And you're also going to have to upgrade to a 90% furnace, because you can't run that flue like we were talking about earlier through.
Yep.
So you want to look at the spread between 8 and 9 and 11 and 14.
So column A is what you recommend, the sort of high quality equipment. Column B is a cheaper. That's not the heat pump. That's the gas thing, right?
Well, this is the reasoning column, so it's just telling you why.
Okay. Sorry, I just forgot that was the reasoning column.
No problem.
I got it. I'm on board now. Let's continue.
All right. Then there's the duct system I put in here separately. And we'll see where his numbers come in. So I've seen numbers between these two. And then there's a step down unit that we could use, but its cold weather performance kind of sucks. And we could use the cold weather performance if you decide to go electric in the future. So it's a good idea to go higher for this one, but we still give you a spread just in case.
Okay.
New duct system, 4 or 5 grand. That's going to be kind of a pain in the butt up there. The basement one is less expensive because it's relatively easy.
That 4 or 5 grand, that includes installation and equipment?
Duct for
Yeah,
duct.
duct. So you're looking at $15,000 to $19,000.
No, I understand that row 31 is just for duct. I'm just asking, is that $5,000 to $4,000? Is that the physical duct plus the installation?
Yes. Yeah, that's
Right.
all. The materials are not that big of a deal. It's
Yeah.
going to be probably $800, $1,000 worth of materials, but then it's like 4 days work.
And that's when we're talking about ripping walls out and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Although for them, the ripping walls out will be done, because loading order is going to be get rid of the HVAC, get rid of the insulation, re-insulate, and also we have to pull the ceilings down where needed. And then the last step is putting the HVAC back.
Okay.
Well, second to last. Last step is drywall back. Okay. Next one is the heat pump water heater. So this is an electric water heater tank that has basically like a window air conditioner compressor on top that pulls heat out of the area that it's in to heat your water. Their operating costs are really similar to gas now. They're actually cheaper than gas in a lot of cases. They do not have backdrafting issues, and as we tighten your house, we may make that water heater backdraft. And so we hate that kind of water heater because they create indoor air quality problems so consistently.
Health and safety problems,
Yeah,
fire problems.
we try not to kill clients. Bad form.
Okay, so row 32 is about replacing our hot water heater that we use for showers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So nice things about these, you can put them anywhere because they don't need a flue. So you might move this to a different part of the basement that's closer to the bathrooms.
Do you have any complaints about waiting for hot water at any of your faucets?
Only after my wife's been in the shower.
No, it takes a while for the hot water.
Okay, we need to switch this to an 80-gallon.
Yeah, like 60 is not very much, is it, or is that what we have now?
A 40. You have a 40.
Yeah, that's we need it big.
We'll go with an 80.
That's no problem. That'll be a little bit more. So there's 2,800, something like that. So one of the curses here is you're going to have to run an electric line over there, and it's going to be kind of a pain in the neck because you have that finished ceiling in between the garage where the box is and over there. But once you run that electrical line once, you won't ever have to run it again.
Does it have to be like higher voltage or higher amperage than normal?
Yeah.
It's 30 amp, and it has to be a 4-wire or a 3-wire because it's 220. The heat pump itself doesn't use very much power. In fact, you can run it on a 110, the heat pump itself, but it has backup resistance heat for high demand periods, and that you need the 220.
When everybody's home at Thanksgiving and you got 5 showers, it'll kick into backup resistance to recover.
Yeah, like the afterburner. I have a 50-gallon in my house, and this past winter we had about a week where we had 13 people in the house, and it kept up.
Wow.
In hybrid mode, anyway. I didn't try it heat pump only because I was trying not to piss people off. But it kept up, and I was really happy. And just so you know, like these tanks are $1,100 to $1,300. Well, that's 50-gallon. I better put that in here. And then I think they're like $1,700 for the 80-gallon. Plus wiring, plus labor, just so you have an idea where these come from. To get to a gas water heater, which does not have backdrafting risk, is minimum $800 or $900. So I'm usually comparing to the 50-gallon. So like it's a couple $100 difference. It's not a huge spread. And then we eliminate the risk of carbon monoxide. Gone. So that's become our strong preference is that particular piece of equipment.
And since they're going to be running electrical wire for heat pumps, even if you don't change the water heater, please run the electric so that when that water heater fails, you are able to put in a heat pump.
Yeah, don't do another one of the, it's called a natural draft water heater, what you have. You're lucky it's actually drafting because I didn't expect it to. But in the air sealing the house, we may make it stop drafting. It's about 50-50 odds when we do these jobs. Okay, Ecobee thermostat. This would be something to consider for the boiler zone. And what the Ecobee does is it logs what's going on, so we can go back and see how the equipment's operating. And where it can be really useful is on a cold day, we can see how much it shuts off, and we get a really good idea of what it actually takes to heat the house. So
Keep track of relative humidity and indoor temperature and outdoor temperature, and So we'll be able to really get an understanding of how the house is performing relative to outdoors.
This is attractive to me.
Okay. Fellow geek, I love you.
I can be at work and like turn the air conditioning off on my daughter and stuff like that, right?
Oh yeah, that'll.
And you're gonna tell me I should not buy a Nest?
You're not doing
No,
that.
don't buy a Nest.
I hate those pieces of
Damn,
crap.
I wanted to buy a Nest. It looks so nice.
Well,
Yeah.
the Ecobee is pretty now too. They didn't used to be, but now they're comparable.
All right.
And you can do one or two, but the boiler one will be really good to do. And then if you keep the first floor air conditioner long term, you might do one. I'm not too worried about it. And then upstairs, you're going to get this crazy thermostat that does everything but your laundry. I totally have a man crush on the thermostat for the new system upstairs. Okay. Electric. This is for the HVAC. We need to pull a wire for the resistance heat to the heat pump upstairs. So we get rid of the hole in the roof, but now we need to find a way to get a wire up there. So Peter and Paul issue. And the backup heat takes a lot of current, so it needs a big fat wire.
Okay.
So that will be a little bit interesting. We may or may not need that. It may fit in the budget for the HVAC. Not totally sure until we get bids. Then we need to get rid of the attic HVAC and ductwork. So maybe we'll get lucky and it will be included. Maybe we'll have to pay extra. Just trying to give you some idea of what to expect. We need to get rid of all the insulation in the third floor.
Okay.
It is a health issue. So once we spray foam it, all that stuff is officially inside the house. You're already breathing, as it turns out, because of poor design. But we don't want to continue having you guys breathe it. So we get that out of there. So all the pee and poop from critters is gone. But also, it makes the workers' jobs a lot easier when it comes to air sealing and doing their jobs. And the more comfortable we make them, the better the job we get.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Because it's an annoying line item that people don't always like. But results oftentimes hinge on this. All right.
Yeah, buy them pizza.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah. Well, you don't have to tell these two. They kept feeding me soup. It was did you guys see how I posted that on Energy Smart? This is good clients.
No.
Oh, you know what? Shoot, I messed up and I posted on my personal one. But one of my other clients chimes in and says, "Crap, I got to up my game."
You can always have a bowl of soup with us, Nate.
Sounds like a plan. I'm sure there will be more to come. All right, we got to take care of some slope ceilings up there, so I put $1,000 to $1,500 in there for doing some demo without making a total train wreck of your house. We need to cut hatches, which are usually like $200 a pop. Actually, we might only need two, so $400 to $600. You can see why I like having this live because I can just change. Because none of this is set in stone. This is all good first iteration, but it's still there's more to go. The dungeon, the floor was bumpy, and it's possible there's concrete under there, but I kind of doubt it. But
No, there's not. And so when we had the sewer work done, they put in some gravel and leveled it and put down that plastic. Before that, it was just dirt.
Okay. The plastic still wasn't continuous.
No.
I don't know how much prep we want to do, but I put some money in here just in case. Because we want to be sure that the door can open and that you don't trip when you go in there. Because you're likely to be able to use this for storage in the future. And
I recommend putting in a concrete floor.
I did, but that was down the road. It didn't fit budget.
Okay.
And then, regardless of whether we do concrete or not, we need to put a solid vapor barrier down, nice thick one, and then all the seams need to be taped. And I forgot to. You'll see some of the weaknesses in here because I've been screwing around with this all day.
So what's the vapor barrier, like a
Plastic.
plastic.
Yeah, it's a good vapor barrier is reinforced plastic. Oftentimes, it's reinforced with fiberglass or something along those lines. They're extra thick. Um,
If you step on it, it won't
break,
puncture.
Okay.
and they'll age well. So you'll probably get 20 years out of it anyway, something like that. They will fail in time, if you pour concrete on it, it won't. Um, but the curse of putting concrete in there is you can't just pour it in. Somebody's going to have to bring it in there with a wheelbarrow, load by load. So it's a lot of labor. I think I
There's
figured.
a window. Can you just shove it in the window?
Where does that window come out? I saw the window, but I didn't see where the heck it went.
It's a buried well. It's a window well, right underneath the downspout from the front porch.
Okay, well then maybe you could do it that way, and that would drop the cost. I'm good with that. I would prefer to put a floor in there, but again, we do try and pay attention to budget, and you'll see this package broke budget for the high cost one anyway.
Okay.
So I kept looking at it like, oh crap, what else can I take out? All right, simple thing. If you insulate the hot water lines that you can find in the basement, it's somewhat of an energy saving thing, but more so it keeps the hot water as it travels to the bathrooms from losing as much heat. So you'll get faster and hotter hot water.
So from a design perspective, hot water that takes more than 5 seconds is bad design. If you insulate those lines, a lot of times you will recurringly get hot water in less than 5 seconds, even if you don't now.
No, it takes longer than 5 seconds to get hot water. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's a good minute upstairs.
Yeah.
It's a long ways up there.
So by insulating those hot water lines, you can oftentimes dramatically reduce that wait time, at least after the first pull of the day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Never thought of that.
So, and you can get that stuff. In fact, if you want some, I may still have some in the garage. I'll bring it. It's yours next time I come out. Just remind me.
Okay.
Let's see. We already talked about this. See if you can drop using one fridge or freezer. It won't be possible all of the year, but maybe some. Small little thing. If you do that, you won't have what I have, but I have my daughter's magnetic letters. She's 5, and I stick a couple in the door so the door doesn't close completely and it doesn't get disgusting inside.
Oh, that's smart.
It won't mold up. So just put something in the door to keep it from closing 100%, and it won't get gross. Or at least it's much less likely. Induction hot plate, we already talked about that. Let's see. I'll put New Wave 2. Or New Wave. They're just kind of fun. So, Chris, knowing what you do, it wouldn't suck if you could recommend that kind of thing. This is the single biggest sticking point to getting people to go electric.
It's interesting.
We just did a new house that all of the HVAC is electric, and they have a freaking gas stove and fireplace. You're just like, oh, we totally missed.
With
Yeah, but they're going to use like 75 therms a year. Who cares? But they're going to pay $350 a year to have that gas meter, to have that. And it's funny, I've talked to the homeowner since then. She's like, I should have just done induction. I've tried it. It's great.
I'm not wedded to gas stove anyway. I'd be happy with induction, but
So try one of those. See what you think.
We'll try it.
Cheryl likes it, but it's just going to be a while before we get to the kitchen.
Oh, I can tell. This is more of it's your position of being a bit of a guru. Even if it's different, it's still energy related. We'd love to begin to adjust the narrative, and the single biggest thing to getting people to go electric is to try a hot plate. Be like, oh, this is kind of cool, and then all the other barriers go down. If your house is warm and your water is hot, do you care how it got that way?
Well, for us, it's radiators versus forced air.
Yep. Well, the forced air done well works as well as radiators.
I think it works better because of the other things that I can control that are important to me to control.
I heard that. That was I think that's something that I didn't really think of. And
The only place I really want radiant is in my bathroom floors.
Hell
And
yeah,
actually, all 3 of my bathroom floors have radiant.
they do. And it's wonderful, let me tell you.
and that's Ted. That's from gas.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's old design thinking. He redid his house, what was that, like 2005, Ted?
Oh, that was
Earlier?
longer than that. Yeah, this was 99. I think I put the radiant in the floors.
Old design. You can do an electric mat now if you guys happen to redo any floors. You put an electric mat down, and as long as you aren't trying to heat the space with it, you're just trying to warm the floor up a degree or two. It doesn't use a ton of juice.
Yeah, my aunt and uncle have 8 electric bathroom floors in their house in Jackson.
Wow.
And it's awesome if you're out there skiing because you just leave your ski boots in the bathroom.
True. His aunt and uncle are pretty well to do too. It's their 7,000 square foot vacation home.
Yeah, nobody's there in the winter, so pretty awesome. 7 unused bathrooms.
All right, here's the big number. 10 G's for spray foam is probably about where we're going to be. We got 1,500 square feet ish to deal with. This is a high cost per square foot, but it's because it's a booger of a job. So there's price per square foot, and there's difficulty factored in.
Got it.
Uh,
There's no spread.
yeah,
10,000.
Has to be.
it's okay. Eric. I don't think it's going to go under that very much. I think that's going to be pretty close to where the number comes. We got the little ceiling over the stairwell. Let's see here. I've got. Or
So what hinges on the spray foam, right? Just for this, I mean, I think this whole project sort of it's kind of doesn't make sense for the philosophy of this project to not do a bunch of insulation. But just for the sake of, I'm just curious, what other thing? If we said forget the spray foam, what else would that fuck up?
you wouldn't drop the load on the house. You wouldn't be able to control the second and third floor comfort-wise very well. It'd still be the same issue.
Yeah.
Picture it like you have a leaky boat right now, and we can change the engine and the bilge pump, but if we don't fix the leak, it doesn't really matter.
I see.
We need to tighten the house and reduce how much it takes to heat and cool the third floor, and we'll be in much better shape.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yep.
Cool. All right, dungeon, and we're finally coming in. You can see that I'm pushing or breaking budget with this package already. So 2-inch closed cell foam on everything in there will keep the moisture from coming in. The tricky part is we're going to have to dry the thing out well enough so the foam will stick, because you don't want to spray a wet surface. That's going to be interesting. You're probably going to get to borrow or buy a couple of dehumidifiers and run them to death in there for a couple days. We'll figure that out when we get there. But if we can deal with the dungeon, boy, the whole house is going to shift.
Or you could put a bunch of if you have any resistance heaters.
Yeah.
Because if you heat those walls up, they'll dry.
Yeah, space heaters could help too. Well, space heater and you guys have a dehumidifier in the basement, right? My mind's blanking.
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that needs to get fixed. Plain old 70 pint, $200, $250 one, snag one at your next opportunity.
So put that in the work scope.
Yeah, we used to have one, and it broke, and I just have never replaced it since.
The damn things are garbage, unfortunately. People ask me, like, so which one do you recommend? I'm like, they're all equally pieces of crap. Let me find dehumidifier. I wish they didn't suck as bad as they do, but they just suck. to 50 to 55%. Okay, so we got the dungeon, and then once we get things torn out, then we need to build soffits and drywall them, finish, and paint. So I've got $3 to $5 grand in for that. I don't know that we're going to need that much, but this is fuzzy in my mind. What's going to happen?
Got it.
We should be fine on that. Maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be 2. And so then we get to, here's the budget package, 45 to 60,000. Which was more money than I was hoping it might be, but I kind of knew it was going to land there anyway. We're not magicians. It just kind of is. Construction's construction. It costs what it costs.
Yep.
So the sweet spot package is just adding the HVAC?
Yep.
Upstairs?
Yeah, first floor HVAC and a new duct system down there.
Sort of gets you to the all done phase, but I'm disinclined to go there because there's a pretty good chance that HVAC you got will not be used that much, and you might not ever need to replace it.
No, I followed you completely there, and it makes sense to me.
So we probably can skip over the rest of these, Nate, can't we? It's getting to 10:40.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to bed. There's lots more here. See, oh geez, it was 97 freaking lines. Good grief. I normally stop around 50 or 60.
Just show them the total crazy package. How much is that?
Okay. Yeah. So going to sweet spot, we're 62 to 87. This is doing everything in the building shell that we can think of, 80 to 112. And then once you get solar and a bunch of other crap and everything I could think of within reason, are you guys falling out of your chairs or what? You're not freaking out.
Well, ever since Bitcoin crashed, forget about that one.
That's the reaction. A laugh is good.
You didn't buy Tesla at 20?
Only you, Ted. So there were a couple things too, just at the bottom here, so that we considered a couple things and then kicked them out. So we could do this is a ventilating up with the whole house dehumidifier. As long as you stick with green speed equipment, this is not a big deal. We don't need to do whole house dehumidification because that system will largely do the job. Ted and I were initially discussing, can we keep some of the duct system? And we argued back and forth, and he's like, all right, it sucks. Let's just get rid of it if you guys are game.
If you guys are game for taking the drywall down in the spray foam approach, then we may as well just get rid of the ductwork. If you're not okay with taking the drywall down, then we cut the ductwork a few feet from where it branches so that we can reattach it to the new ductwork that's in the attic where it drops down. But then you have all of those issues of snow melt and ice dams and things that we're sort of hoping to improve.
Yeah, I think will cause more problems than we solve. And then I also had considered using cellulose in the slope ceiling in the main third floor room, the entertainment room. But it's too long of a slope to do this well. It won't work well. So you guys can read the rest of these, and you can see there's budgets and like everything's in here, and go from there. So you guys, we always have to put a place to stop. So we have one more conversation in us, which can be email or conversation. So build up a bunch of questions and then shoot them to me, and we'll deal with those. And then that's the end of this phase, and then we move to hourly moving forward, just so we know there's some kind of a break.
Well, except isn't there an offer for one more? I thought that we had said there's.
Oh yeah, that would be so. That's really the next step, Ted. That is the next step is we sit back down either in person or virtually again, and we discuss what the actual project's going to look like. And we either have a $250 charge for that, which is just standalone, and then if you want to kick us to the curb, great. You don't have to use us. We don't ever want you to feel like you are stuck using us. It does reduce odds considerably if you don't, particularly with a Mondo complicated one like this one. But you don't have to, and we don't want you to ever feel like you're having your arm twisted.
So basically, what we
I get
came up
that.
with,
Word go.
instead of doing the signing up for the $6,000 project management piece, for another $250, you can have another one of these reviews. Basically, go over everything we went over today again, like 4, 6, 7 months down the road, so that it sinks in better.
Okay.
If need be, or we can decide what you're actually going to freaking do.
Yeah.
Call me crazy. You guys are pretty likely to execute, right?
Yeah. Something.
So we just have to decide what the exact project is. Typically, we get the budget package, plus people will pull 1 or 2 things from elsewhere, and then sometimes we'll kick a few things out of the budget package.
And you could do whatever you want out of that. It's just a likelihood thing and a situation of, oh, you don't want to do all of that stuff. Okay, we think that there's, you're no longer at 85, 90% likelihood of satisfaction. And also you're putting at risk unanticipated consequences. And we're good helping you get whatever it is you want to implement. We just don't want you to be like, oh my God, this ended up happening. How come you didn't warn us it would happen?
Yeah.
Well, we did. We didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but we said, that takes us down to a 40% likelihood of success.
Yeah.
Got it.
I have one question. What is the spray foam?
What is it made of?
Yeah.
It is oil-based, unfortunately. The newer generations of it, at least, are low global warming potential, and they're not nice while they're being sprayed, so we actually have to kick you guys out of the house during spray and for 24 hours afterwards. Well, we don't have to, but that's best practice.
Fubots have been showing us that the houses, if they're done under pressure with a blower door, looks like they're pretty good after 3 to 6 hours, but 24 hours is to be safe.
Yeah. View it like spray paint. You don't want to breathe it while you're spraying it, but a couple days later you can lick it. We would prefer not to have to use this product, but it's the only thing that consistently delivers really good results without killing anyone. Because all the other options are super labor intensive and super risky.
Okay.
And they require a really high level of quality control and detail.
Yeah, that I'm pretty good
You
at this.
can't find anybody that's capable of doing that.
I can't do it. Like, it's beyond my capabilities doing that well. Spray foam, I know I can use well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things that kind of sucks. It's like, wait a minute, so you're using a gas generator to power your Tesla? Yeah, just this one time.
So, I just have 2 more questions.
Sure.
Okay. You guys there?
Yeah, yeah, we're here. Ask away.
Just in terms of next steps. So, I guess one step is we just say thank you very much. This is really valuable and just super careful, thorough work that you've done here. We got this spreadsheet. We decide where to go from there with local people in Pittsburgh. Another step is we want to continue to sort of develop and plan with you guys based upon this with another extensive conversation. That costs us $250.
Correct.
And then suppose that Cheryl and I, over the next, frankly, it'll be a relatively short period of time, decide whether or not we want to continue with you guys as the project managers, and then have a conversation about, okay, what exactly are we going to do? That's going to cost another $250 as well.
Well, yeah, if you just want to have separate meetings, $250 a piece.
Okay.
But likely after the next 250, we basically decide what the project's going to be, and then I would be able to tell you what the project management cost is. But until we nail down what the project is and how many trips I'm going to need, things like that, it's tough for me to do. As far as contractors, so you have this in your mind, HVAC guy, let's use your guy. HVAC's much better to use local people. The insulation side, I have so much training to get people up to speed to where they can do this without just destroying me, that I'd really lean towards using my local guy. And I already asked him if he would come to Pittsburgh. He's like, sure, no problem.
Okay. And then, so the next step is, I guess I just outlined 3 steps, but there's really only 2 steps. We either say thank you very much right now, or we pay another $250 and continue this conversation and then go from there.
No, you have questions that you can ask.
Oh yeah, you've got another. You can ask more questions now that are still covered with this. So you can send me an email if you work up 10 questions. Just do a draft email so you don't ping me with 10 different emails.
Yeah.
And just send them and I'll answer them all.
Okay.
And then that's where again, I just have to find some place to break, or else.
So take a week to put your questions together.
Yeah.
Got it.
You guys are going to sleep on this for a while.
Yep. And then my last question is, supposing that we go with you guys as project managers, is that the right way to describe this?
Yep, that's what we would do moving forward. Project and QC.
Would just talk to me about the difficulties that you anticipate and the costs that, for me in terms of the geographic distance here, Cleveland, Pittsburgh.
So my goal would be to minimize the number of trips. HVAC is not; it doesn't require a ton of watching on my part. The shell side, probably all of us would come out and get hotels for a week or something like that, and knock the project out.
And the costs of that, of hotels, of your travel time and so on, that's included in the numbers you just showed me?
Yeah, the 4,000 to 6,000. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing about that's interesting is you could probably find somebody locally that Nate could work with, but the risk is that he ends up not being easy to work with, and Nate's bill triples because his bill is basically an hourly bill.
I try to give you a fixed cost, so like if I go over by 10 hours, whatever, I'm not that worried about it. If I go over by 30, yeah, we need to have a discussion.
Yeah, it's really sort of an hourly with a cap based on our expectations. If the HVAC guy is a basket case, you may end up having to have a conversation with Nate.
Yeah. I prefer not to.
Yeah.
But I can meet the HVAC guy or talk to him or whatever, and we'll figure this stuff out.
He could be vetted pretty quickly if you to make sure that he's on board with doing some of the things that may sound a little crazy to some HVAC guys.
Yeah, frankly, I don't know how comfortable Bill would be with all of this, but we would certainly get him involved and just see whether or not we would certainly vet him in a very transparent way and just say, listen, here's the deal. We hope that that you can be involved, you want to be involved, and you're qualified to be involved. So good. Shirley, got anything else?
No.
So what do you think about this process and about what I mean, it's a lot right now to ask you, but
Oh, I'm very impressed with the thoroughness, the systematic nature that you guys use to approach this. You know, the model.
is it reassuring?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay. That's awesome.
No, for example, I did not anticipate this long laundry list of stuff, all the way from HVAC down to insulating the hot water pipes. I think that's reassuring. That's and of course we paid like $1,300 or something for this, right? How much was that?
Yeah, 1,300.
Yeah. So I feel like we got our money's worth. I mean, I wouldn't know where to start doing this myself. I guess I would just find some other energy audit comprehensive type of service. But I think you guys do a great job.
Thank you.
How do you fit into this, Ted? If we go ahead. I never figured out what
Usually I fit in the background because I'm Nate's mentor.
Yeah.
And so mostly people don't see me.
We have
But this is a very complicated project and house. And we both kind of dig it. It's going to be a cool project. And I think if you go forward with it, I was sort of hoping to ride along and hear your observations as you see the house change.
Yeah, well,
That's really fun. It's really fun part of the project is homeowners like, holy shit, this is different. And then they start thinking about how it's different, and that's fun.
no, the whole sort of feedback, measure things. We don't have a lot of data and narrative that I learned from Nate's book and like listening to a podcast with him and these Energy Gang guys. No, that's what kind of I bought that hook, line, and sinker. That's why we're here. So
We're actually hoping to change the way that these services are delivered in the country, and we're hoping to create this, a process that people don't have to be too. If everybody doing this has to hit like Tiger Woods, we're gonna 99.9999% of the people are gonna fail.
yeah,
most houses are not as hard as yours.
Most houses are a lot easier than yours, and we think that most reasonable HVAC contractors could deliver these services to most houses.
yeah.
And two of them are hanging on here. Hi, Mike. Hi, Eric.
Yeah,
They've been listening.
yeah. The early guinea pigs, poor guys, stupid guys.
We have fun. So we were just up late last night chatting too. For that matter.
Yeah.
So, Monday night is our weekly meeting while we're trying to figure out how to do this. The whole goal of this is to shift how HVAC is sold, so that homes actually get fixed and become higher performing, and problems for clients get solved. Not right for everybody, but it's probably one of those things. If you start hearing about this, it's likely to become a status symbol moving forward. Like, oh, did you do a comprehensive planning process at your house? Who'd you use for your CPP? If that sort of thing happens, it's likely to turn into a snowball and start moving.
Tesla, baby.
Yeah.
Tesla, baby.
Unfortunately, Tesla has the beauty of having one product they can just put out. They have all of their work is upfront creating the product. The curse of what we have to do is every house, every client, every budget is different.
Yeah.
If I bought your house, the budget and the job would be different. So
The complaints would be different.
the goals are
The
different.
complaints. That bothers you? That doesn't. But this over here really bothers me. What? I mean, it's crazy but that's how you have to do it. It has to be custom tailored. It has to be custom tailored. And so basically what we're trying to do is figure out how to create a whole bunch of master tailors.
Or doctors.
I'm going to crash. It was wonderful meeting you folks.
Yeah, you too, Ted. Thanks a lot for your time. It was
Yeah.
a really fascinating 3 hours.
Yeah, no, it was
We're
Sorry.
not going to crash. We're going to have a beer.
All right.
Go get
We'll
hammered.
have a beer with Nate and the guys. Maybe You can talk to the other two guys that are on now. I'm gonna crash. Bye.
Thanks again, Ted. Great
Thanks,
talking to you. All right, Nate, you still there?
I am. Yep.
Okay, so let's, I think, neither Cheryl or I have any more questions. Let's, I'll certainly write you an email, giving you some indication of what we're interested in, say within a week.
Sounds like a plan.
You know, or maybe a well-organized set of questions.
Great.
And then, you know, here's what we're interested in, but something like that, okay?
That sounds like a great plan. Enjoy your evening. Thank you so much. And actually, let me double check your.
Cheryl's got one
Nate,
more thing.
I was just wondering if you want us to send you some pictures of these sort of uncertainties that we talked about.
Yes, please. I'm trying. Which uncertainties now?
Now it was the window on the on the landing and whether it was on that slope, and then did the thing at the bathroom wall matter? Whether you could go around it or not? It didn't, right?
No, that doesn't actually matter.
Okay.
That's the scope of the job.
Just the one thing, this sort of
Yeah.
dormer weirdness up there.
And I'm looking at that poster to see if it's the art or the mold. I'll let you know.
Okay. Sweet. Thank you, guys. Enjoy your beer that you were about to partake in. And Mike and Eric, thanks for hanging in there for 3 freaking hours.
Thanks. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. And thanks, thanks a lot, Nate. 3 hours.
Yep. Thank you.
My pleasure. This one went over every time. But such is life. I will email you all the files tomorrow.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.